Okay, good morning and welcome to the December 12th, 2023 Board of Supervisors for the County of Lake. We're going to call this meeting to order. We'll start with a moment of silence. I want to dedicate this moment of silence to Carol Germanis. She passed away earlier this fall. She was a longtime Cobb resident and an institution and a volunteer, and always had a full table or a table for anyone to join dinners at the Italian Village in the summer. So she will be missed. And is there anyone else that has a moment of silence?
I'll go ahead and make a comment. We just had a COC meeting last week, and a comment was made for something that I feel that should be at least made public, and that we remember all of these people. Granted, it will be coming to us at a later time. Did learn that over the past year in our homeless population that we have seen 11 folks pass away out in the unsheltered. And so just want to make sure that we think of those individuals. They're as important as every other person that we talk about up here. They're emotional human beings that deal with some of the hardest lifestyle issues that anyone can ever be demanded to deal with. And just want to remember that we do the hard work to help every single one of them, and that it's unfortunate that so many have succumbed to the elements.
I actually do. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
It is profound. It is with profound sadness that I report the recent passing of our advisory council chair for the Area Agency on Aging, Paul Branson. He was an amazing individual who worked, and he was a passionate advocate for the Lake County seniors and the transportation needs of the marginalized community for the seniors. And so he's been an effective member for years, and so he'll be missed. And so.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Sheriff Howe, do you want to lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any extra items not appearing on the agenda?
We have no extra items today.
Okay, we'll move on to approval of the consent. Do we have any items that need to be pulled? Supervisor Spatier?
I'd like to pull items 5.5 and 510 for further discussion.
Okay. Does anyone in the public have any items that they wish to pull from the consent agenda? Not seeing any in the chambers. Let me check the Zoom room. Yeah, you're right. I'm in. I'm not a panelist. Okay. Thank you. Okay, not seeing any hands up in the Zoom room either, so I will bring it back to the board for action.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 5.5 and 5.10.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Do we have anything short? We'll just wait one. Oh, wait, we are at 9:06 now. Okay, it's 9:06 a.m. Our 6.1 item is public input. Do we have anybody in the chambers who wishes to come up and give comment at this time? Okay, come and state your name and you will have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Skyla Lewa, and I'm with Pillsbury Family Farms, a cannabis farm out in District 3 in Lake Pillsbury area. I come before you because I am a Native American woman who entered into the cannabis industry in the legal industry, going through all the proper regulations with the county and the state. Being a Native American in today's America is really hard because we already face travesties at the federal level. Our tribal casino compacts are being challenged in Washington over the federal level. We are under attack for our ICWA treaties that we have with the BIA, and our communities are under attack, and me being a Native American woman being under attack by the county by the way that I am being treated when I come to pay my cannabis business taxes by Liz Martin, and being treated as though I am beneath her and that I am filth coming before her to pay my taxes is really disheartening and hard to take as a Native American woman, because I've worked in the public eye for over 15 years. I've waited on several different people for 10 years, so I have a very good understanding of how your public interactions are supposed to be. As a county employee, you want to hire people to come and work in this county who have good relations with the public, and that is not being met. We had a business meeting with Patrick Sullivan on December 1st. He walked into our meeting and refused to be recorded because we wanted to hold him accountable for the county accepting $50,000 for the cannabis equity grant that we applied for in September of last year. It was accepted. Our tax bill was $64,000. We got it reduced to $4,200. At the time we paid our taxes, we were not informed that the county grant was already covered our taxes. So we paid out of pocket. We paid out of pocket for our annual compliance fee, our pesticide fees, and all of this stuff was supposed to be covered by the county grant. And under County Cannabis Code Section 18-73, it explicitly states that if the county accepts or erroneously has accepted a cannabis business tax, that we have to file a claim with the tax collector, Patrick Sullivan. We have tried to do that. It has took us 10 and a half months to get a meeting before him because he chooses to hold his position and not have an open line of communication with the cannabis community. And the cannabis community is suffering under his reign as the tax collector because we cannot get a conversation with him or with the previous person, Kim Darnell, in administration, or with Casey Moreno. So I would like to let you guys know that the cannabis community in your county is suffering from the lack of transparency and accountability and integrity of your workers. And I hope that you take this matter seriously and you look into the investigation of Patrick Sullivan and how he chooses to treat the cannabis community because it is unjust and unfair.
Your time is
Thank
up.
you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any,
I'm sorry.
did you have something, Supervisor Crandall? Oh, okay. Do we have any other public comment? Anyone in the chambers or in the Zoom room? We have a hand up in the Zoom room. Aaron M., if you want to unmute, state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Aaron.
It's Erin McCarrick out of Clear Lake. I'm a distributor out of Clear Lake and vice president of the Lake County Cannabis Alliance. And I'm not sure if it's authorized for this grant funding session, but I would just like to take this time to encourage the County of Lake to apply for the Cannabis Equity Grant. The deadline for the application is December 14th at 11:59 p.m. Again, not sure if it's gone through the process of the board and the authorization that it needs, but if it has, and if there's any possibility of that, it'd be really fantastic. And this is on behalf of the growers of Lake County, as I'm in Clear Lake and it doesn't actually impact our business, but it really has been helpful to many of the growers and cannabis businesses within the County of Lake. Thank you very much, President and board. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Do we have anyone else? I'm not seeing anyone in the Zoom room or the chambers, so we'll close public comment and move on to 6.2, our 9:07 a.m. item, Pet of the Week. We have Animal Care and Control with us.
Good morning. I'm Officer Guard with Lake County Animal Control. This is Charlie. He's a 1-year-old pit bull lab mix. He recently was in our disaster relief program and he did really, really, really well. He gets along with other dogs, cats, kids, everybody. Sit, Charlie. Sit. And he even sit. But he walks on a leash really well also. If anybody's interested, we're located at 4949 Hellbush Drive. You can call us 707-263-0278. Thank you.
You know how old?
Yeah, how old is he?
1 year.
1 year.
He's one.
Very nice.
Yep, but he's a good boy. You guys have a wonderful day.
Thanks for coming. Okay, 6.3, 9:08 a.m. New and noteworthy at the library, and we have Director Veach online with us. Yes, there he is.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Christopher Veach, County Librarian, and thank you for giving me just a few minutes to talk about what's new and noteworthy at the library. Let me see if I can share the image of the book that I have this week. So this week I wanted to share with you the book The Bee Sting by Paul Murray. Paul Murray is an Irish novelist, and The Bee Sting is described as a humorous and tragic novel about the plight of the Barnes family, who live in a small town in Ireland and have fallen on hard times. Published this year, it was shortlisted for the Booker Prize and won an Irish Book Award as 2023 Novel of the Year. It has also been named a Best Book of the Year by the New York Times, the Washington Post, Time, and more. And Jen Dahl wrote in her review for the New York Times, "Through the Barnes' countless personal dramas, Murray explores humanity's endless contradictions, how brutal and beautiful life is, how broken and also full of potential, how endlessly fraught and persistently promising. Whether or not we can ever truly change our course, the hapless Barneses will keep you hoping even after you turn the novel's last page." And The Bee Sting by Paul Murray is popular in our library, with over 315 people waiting for the 90 copies we have available through our system. And you can request The Bee Sting or other titles through our online library catalog, which has the combined resources of Lake, Sonoma, and Mendocino County library systems. Requesting items is completely free to library patrons, and items are sent to your local branch for you to pick up. And then I'm also excited to announce that our bookmobile is here and is embarking on a welcome tour through the county this entire week. And so I have the schedule here. Today, between 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., you can see the bookmobile in action at the Redbud Library in Clear Lake. Tomorrow, it will be at the Lakeport Library from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then on Thursday, it'll be at Hardishers Market in Cobb from 1 to 2 p.m. and at West America Bank in Kelseyville from 3 to 4 p.m. Next week, December, it will be at the Middletown Library from 10 to 3 p.m. And on Wednesday, December 20th, it'll be at the Upper Lake Library from noon to 4 p.m. And we're going to be adding more welcome tour stops in January. And then after the welcome tour, we plan for the bookmobile to begin a 3-day-a-week schedule to places not currently served by our established library branches. So you can find the bookmobile welcome tour dates, as well as all of our other events and resources at our website at library.lakecountyca.gov, or come visit your local library branch, of course, in Lakeport, Clear Lake, Middletown, or Upper Lake. So thank you again for listening to what's new and noteworthy at the library.
Well, thank you for joining us, Christopher. And I am so excited about the bookmobile welcome tour. I'm going to be out there as much as I can in the district 5 days on Thursday. It brings back so many great memories, and I'm just delighted that we're entering into a new era of having this service available for the people that live in the outer reaches of Lake County. Anyone else have anything for Christopher? Anything from the public? All right, well, thank you for joining us, Christopher. Oh, sorry, we have Supervisor
I
Spudge.
just have a quick question. I love these new and noteworthy at the library. Wondering if we can make copies of this and use it on PEG, if you're okay with that, Christopher?
Yes, of course.
That way we can use it as fill-in in between programs. That would be great.
Yeah, if that works for you.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Six 9:15 a.m. item presentation of the crop report, 2022 crop report. And we have our Ag Commissioner, Catherine Vanderwall. Good morning.
have for you this morning, hot off the press as of yesterday, our official printed copies.
Thank you.
So good morning, Catherine Vanderwall, Agricultural Commissioner. So this morning I'm here to present to you our 2022 Crop and Livestock Report. Sorry, I get adjusted here. So I'd like to thank my staff, Avella Gayton, Sam Upton, and Janice Luke, in helping gather the information and compiling the data that's presented here today, as well as the industry who provided their information. So the 2022 crop report, the estimated gross production value for 2022 was approximately $107 million. This represents a 28% increase from 2021. So some things to note for 2022 is that our nursery and timber production were down. In 2022, we had 0 people registered for the industrial hemp program, so there were no participants in the program. And then additionally in 2022, we added a cannabis crop report insert for the first time. So this reflects the 2022 production square footage for both mixed light and outdoor cultivation. And I would like to thank the tax collector and community development for providing this information. Going forward in 2023, my office is looking forward to working with the cannabis industry to expand on the data that we're going to include and provide. So this will, hopefully kind of something that mirrors the traditional ag as far as gross production values and really kind of tease out the different categories instead of just having the square footage listed. Okay, next. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I know I had a long introduction. So just kind of going through some of our old crop reports, I thought it was just interesting to take a look back. What were things like 50 years ago? So I picked out some of our main commodities that we still produce here in the county today. So 50 years ago, looking at 1972, our pear acreage was 7,000 acres. Wine grapes sat at 270 acres. Our walnut industry was 9,600 acres. Our field and seed crops, so that includes pasture, hay, wild rice, any other type of grain crops, was about 181,000 acres. And our cattle and calves were about 9,500 head. Wow. How do I go to next? No, it's not working. Oh, that's okay. Okay. So and then kind of fast forward to 2022, where we stand today, our pear acreage has decreased. We're sitting at about 1,300 acres. Wine grapes has obviously increased. We're about almost 11,000 acres. Our walnuts, field and seed crops, and cattle and calves, all those numbers have decreased as well. Walnuts were now about 3,500 acres. Field and seed crops is about in half at 91,000 acres. And our cattle numbers are about 1,600 head in the county. Next. So this graph just kind of shows the 50-year comparison with 1972 being in green, and then the blue represents 2022 numbers. I did not put the field and seed crops in this graph because the numbers were so large, so it drastically shrank everything else down. Next. And then last year, I presented this same graph, but it was a 15-year gross value comparison. I expanded it out a little bit this year. So this just shows, the overall gross value each year for the county. As with any industry, you have your peaks and your valleys. It just kind of goes up and down. So I'm just going to continue keeping this going, just so we can see the overall trend as the years go by. So our top 5 commodities for 2022. Go ahead, go to the next one. Sitting in at number 1 is our wine grapes at about $84 million. Number 2, despite our small acreage, is our pear industry at about $16 million. Number 3 is our field and seed crops. As I mentioned, this is like pasture, hay, and other grain crops, and that's about 2.2 million. Our number 4 commodity is cattle and calves at about 1.5 million. And then our last number 5 one is miscellaneous livestock. So this includes goats, sheep, hogs, meat, birds, and that type of animals. And that's at 763,000. So our cannabis production, again, this information was compiled and gathered from both community development and the tax collector's office. So this gives the square footage that they had on record for 2022 for mixed light cultivation and outdoor cultivation. And as I'd mentioned earlier, going forward in 2023, working with the cannabis industry to expand that section to include gross production values, as well as the different categories. Does the board have any questions?
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, just a compliment. I know it's bare bones, but to see cannabis included in the crop report is very exciting. I know it's a first step, and I don't know how other crop values get reported to your office, but I know if the cannabis industry is listening, hopefully we'll figure out a way to get some of those inputs. But just very quickly, I want to point out that on the square footages, I counted about 7.6 acres of mixed light and about 178 acres total for outdoor. Substantial, definitely. Would like to see those numbers higher, but we do have a discretionary use permit process that has made this kind of a slow growth industry. Would love to see future reporting in acres, just so we can have apples to apples when we're comparing against other crops. And also to signal to those people that think, oh, cannabis is so out of control, it is just a fraction of the acreages that are devoted to traditional crops in this county, and probably will remain that way for some time. So thank you very much for including what's in here this year, and looking forward to a more detailed breakout in the future years as the industry networks with you to provide that information.
Right, thank you.
Any other comments from the board? It's always hard to see walnuts go down. And I know the last couple of years were really tough. It was 2021 that the trees started to show the damage.
Yeah.
In the spring of 2021, yeah, in the last couple of years. It's been hard for them to recover, and I know it's hard for those farmers too.
Yeah.
Supervisor Crandall?
Yes, I wanted to ask about, I seen that there was an email from some constituents, and I wanted to just see when, because I know that in the comment or the response, there was a statement that because of the federal regulation, we weren't necessarily going to report the amount, and then there was a request to see when we can address it at a later date or something of the like when it comes to the amount. And so I'm just giving that input as another response that I received back from some of the folks that asked the question. And I don't know if there's more dialogue about this or not, but I just wanted to, make that out, so.
Well, it sounds like it'll be in next year's report, and maybe next year with the insert, we can have a look back at the years since legalization so that we can have some benchmarks, see how we're growing.
As far as like the production values, possibly, a lot of the information that's presented here, my office is doing surveys, so we're actually reaching out and contacting growers. So the information is it's what we can get.
Right.
So it depends on who wants to provide that information, how far back they want to go. But that's something we can, definitely reach for.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Supervisor Spatier?
Yeah, I appreciate the questions that were asked regarding the cannabis portion of the presentation, but I think it's also a little difficult because there's so many different avenues of how people sell it. Are they selling it as oil? Are they selling it as flour? Are they selling it as, I don't even know what it's called, frozen fresh or something like that? That value can be quite varying, and with the market being volatile as it has been, it's kind of hard probably to capture that. So I'm looking forward to you finding out a way to get that number so we can get that average across the board. And I think that if we have something started this year, I expect next year it'll say 2022, here were the numbers, and here's 2023 with the new numbers, so we can have that comparison just like we have here. One of my questions are the organic production. I know it's kind of a mixture of all the stuff above it, and it says crops include. I'm just wondering if we can get maybe like the top three, because it's 6,000 acres, which is a lot of acres. What represents the largest organic crop in the area, just out of curiosity. And so I don't need the answer today right now, but just something that I would like to see in the future is just a little bit of a breakdown, since it's not like it's 12 acres. It's actually quite a large amount. It'd be nice to know.
Right.
Okay. Anyone from the public?
The vegetables went up 1.8 acres.
Went up. They did. Erin has her hand up. If you want to unmute and state your name, and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Erin McCarrick, Clear Lake, Vice President, Lake County Cannabis Alliance. Yeah, thank you for including cannabis as the numbers in there. And thank you for the work that the CDD and the Ag Department and the board and the Community Development Department has been doing with cannabis to integrate a little, more closely with Ag and embrace it. So thank you all for that. And the president of the LCCA and NARA being on the task force have helped make those connections, Jen Smith and Nara Del Baca. So thanks to them as well. I was actually going to say what Supervisor Green said. So if next year it could be reported in acres, 7 million looks like a lot, but it's only 178 acres. And 178 of outdoor plus 7.6 of mixed light is about 1% of the wine grapes right now. So if it's possible to report in acres next year, that'd be awesome, because it looks very overwhelming to see the number 7 million. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Erin. Do we have anyone else in Zoom? All right, not seeing any hands. I'll bring it back to the board. Any other questions before we move on? All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your report every year.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
I feel like in the past we made a motion to approve the crop.
Oh, do we have,
There was no recommended action. I just feel like in the past we approved it.
do we approve it?
That came up last year.
Do we always have the same question?
Yes, your board may move to approve the report. That is an option for your board.
I'd like to make it official. I move to approve the crop report as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we have little time before our next timed item. Should we do, what would you like to do?
You may wish to pick up 5.5 and 5.10.
Okay. We will go to 5.5. Approve continuation of proclamation declaring a Clear Lake hitch emergency, pulled by Supervisor Sabatier.
Thank you very much. So there's been a lot of good conversation. I listened in to the meeting over at the Water Board. The approximate number that was said was 1.4 million, which is great, but I don't know what that means. And 1 year is not a year to be able to measure. And I'm just wondering if we can ask staff to work with Fish and Wildlife and the Water Board to figure out what is the number we're aiming for. Because I am getting some feedback from those saying 1.4 million, it's over. Well, I don't know what the number should be. I don't know how 1 year can really tell us how this has changed. I would suspect that after 2 or 3 years of seeing similar numbers, then we can say that's the number we have. But I'm just kind of curious. There's no metric in our emergency. Wondering if we can ask staff to work with the professionals who understand the hitch population and the hitch issue to come back to us with a approximate, maybe even a tiered approach, where right now we're in the extreme situation of the hitch population, and then the severe situation with the hitch, and then just kind of seeing. I'd like to feel that like there's progress, but I don't have a meter to tell me what it is that we're aiming for, and I would like to be able to have something appropriate to put on there. I am not the one to ask for what that number is, but wondering how the rest of the board feels about looking at setting up some sort of metric within the emergency declaration.
Supervisor Crandall, I think you got your pen up first.
Yeah, I feel like there does need to be a metric. However, there's not really a way to determine that, I think, from our standpoint in the county. And the reason I say that is because even if we have the water for 1 year, let's say that we have another drought, whatever the case may be, the main issue is they're not thriving in the streams. The work hasn't been done to ensure that they're safe, so there's not really a habitat or anything of the like to ensure their safety. So we can count and then say, oh, it's not an emergency anymore, but it's inevitable that it's going to be again until we fix those things. So for me, I mean, we could ask them to do it, but I don't think you're going to get, I think you're going to get a number, but then there's going to be a different number because the weather and, and the earth, basically, Mother Earth climate change is going to determine that. And if we can get these actual streams, some of these projects done that are in the Blue Ribbon Committee, I think those will give the opportunity for them to thrive or have a better, more consistent passage and spawning behaviors and things of the like. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just giving you asked for our insight, so I'm giving you my insight.
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the desire to chart a path forward based on one or more metrics. I don't think we're anywhere close to having a usable metric or set of metrics. And I think one reason for that, if you were to use population estimates as that metric, one thing we've noticed in the last year is the absolute dearth of reliable data as far as what population counts may be based on some mix of the gill netting that USGS does and more anecdotal reports of fish populations that were observed around the county. And to the point of recovery, that's a multi-year understanding that has to evolve. So a population data set from 1 year or another strong year, if we have one this year, really doesn't get us to the answers that the state regulators need to craft their understanding. Are we still in a state of emergency? Are we in some set of endemic decline? And as was noted at the last Water Board's meeting, in addition to whatever we're noting about the general decline of the hitch population, we're also seeing general declines in other fish species within Clear Lake. And so I'm not aware of any reliable metric at this point that would negate the need for our emergency proclamation. I'm starting to think about when we start looking at population figures and other environmental factors, whether in fact our emergency is limited to the Clear Lake hitch. So in the State Water Board regulations that are coming out, the huge amount of data gaps that they're facing in their own understanding points to their one metric that they are charged with finding is what's a minimum in-stream flow sufficient to support the hitch during their spawning cycles. We have no clue how to estimate those right now because we don't have a good enough groundwater data to estimate the interplay between groundwater pumping and surface stream flows. So it is an immensely complicated subject. Again, I do appreciate the idea that we should somehow come to some common understanding that would allow us to throttle our own emergency footing. But everything I've seen in the past year since we passed our emergency proclamation indicates that we don't know what we don't know. We're just floundering about in the dark. And so the Water Board's attempts to fill in the data gaps as far as groundwater usage is important. Continued attention to population modeling is important, but I'm aware that this may be the first year that we've actually tagged some hitch to see how they're floating around the lake. And there's clear room for improvement in population modeling for our non-native fish species as well. So there's a lot to unpack in there. So anyway, to your question though, I'm not eager to apply any type of metric now because I think the only metric I have right now is a wider understanding of how many data gaps there are and how hard it's going to be to fill those data gaps.
Vice Chair Simon?
Yeah. At the presentations that were given by all agencies at the Hitch Summit that we just attended last month, that's exactly as Michael Green stated. There are a lot of data gaps. I like the way he said it now. We don't know what we don't know. So they are building on that. Obviously, they made some definite real commitments to start to work on that data, figure out what is going on with the hitch population here in the lakes. Obviously, we had good rain years, so that changed some of the outlooks that you're seeing in the creeks and streams. But yeah, we're not there yet, but it's being worked on. That data conversation, as you always bring up with all things that we're talking about, is being worked on with all agencies, including the tribes and all the organizations working on it. And I think you'll have a better matrix or idea in which direction we're moving by next year's summit. So I think that's a little early at this point.
And just to at least clarify, not looking for something to come back within the next month, just a broad request. If that comes only when the data is available, and that happens to be a year from now, 2 years from now, I don't know. There's just nothing in the when people hear 1.4, I'm getting phone calls of what does that mean? Is it over? And the answer is this is a 1 year's worth of data. There's no way to know that where we are in is this data we missed last year? Is this new data? It has to be over the course of 3 to 5 years or whatever the case might be that you can see some stability rather than having one number that looks large and having questions. And so if we can get to the point of creating some sort of metric, which again needs to be done by those who are experts in those fields, not me, that it would help to at least identify for those who read our proclamation to better understand what we're aiming for and maybe what some of the stepping stones are, what the steps are on getting to the conclusion that we're looking for. So just wanted to have the conversation. I think that from what I understand, we all agree that at one point it would be nice to have that information to be able to say this is what we're aiming for. We're obviously doing a lot of work, and maybe the question was premature and need to be a little patient in order to get to that point.
Supervisor Crandall?
Yes, there was a couple of slides that I think I'll highlight. I think it was GS, something GS?
USGS.
Yes, GS. They gave two slides that were very important and it actually alludes to what you're talking about, is that one, there was a count or something of the like that showed in 2017, 2018 what the count was and how high it was, and then after the decline, and then the same actual amount in 2020, this year, 2022. And so they're like, where do these hitch come from if they're not surviving or they're not thriving? So the only thing they can give is a theoretical type of example that maybe it came from Tule Lake, maybe it came from this. We're thinking it's that in Blue Lakes. And so with that being said, the habitat of Middle Creek is important for that. But I think one of the things that's, it's a little frustrating is how can we just basically ask, is it over now, so we can just kind of, get away from this? I mean, with other species and whatnot, you have to go through, quite a few years to ensure that it's thriving or it's not thriving. And again, it gets me right back to the streams. It gets me right back to, that work that needs to be done. It was emphasized in that Hitch Summit to the state, like, look, we need these things done in order for us to ensure that they survive, especially when one of the actual presentations showed that they thought maybe it was Tule Lake, which would connect to Middle Creek Restoration, which would provide a habitat. So I think a lot of that needs to happen, and we could do the studies here. I mean, yeah, that's fine, but the way I feel is whoever does the studies in county, it's hard for whoever to accept it. But when we have the state or USGS or anyone else do it, it's a little more palatable for whoever has their mindset or thought. So it's unfortunate it's that way, but that's at least what I've gathered and seen, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
And just a last comment, the USGS even stated that the only data that they started collecting, I think, was in 2017, but 2017 is not a baseline because that's already after a decline has occurred over decades. And so I don't see us necessarily asking. I think we're waiting for folks like USGS what is the baseline that we are aiming for? Because obviously 2017 was way late in looking at what the population is, especially since it was put on the threatened species list in 2014, which means the decline was way before that. And just out of curiosity to better understand, and so that folks, when they see a number, let's say next year for what happened in the spawning season, they can make a comparable saying, yes, we are at 2.2 million maybe this year, but we're aiming for this. We're not aiming for 2.2 million. So we'll get there when we get there. But just, again, wanted to be curious about if we can make that request. So.
Okay, do we have anyone from the public? No hands up in Zoom and no one in the chambers. We can bring it back to the board for action. So I'm just wondering how there can be a report back to the board from what you learned at the summit, what was shared at the summit, because we do have this emergency, and it would be a perfect opportunity for the rest of the board to be informed about what steps have happened since last year. We did have a report about the creek cleanups, so I'm just wanted to get your thoughts on that, Supervisor Crandall.
Well, I think this summit happened, 2 weeks ago? And the next meeting wasn't really ideal to have it, because we had 3 people here. And so, and that would have been something reported out in our calendars. And so, as you know, last week with the situation, we weren't able to do that either. So, I mean, if you do want to have that, I mean, that's not a problem. We could probably invite Luis Santana, who would be able to better, explain as well. We can give our point of view as, what we talked about, and some of the commitments that were made by the state and other governments. But what I do know is it was a lot more smoother than any other meeting we've had when it comes to the hitch. So that's a good thing, So, yeah. So I mean, I think too, that talking with Luis, who is set the whole thing up on that end, would help outside of previous to having this report. That would be a good thing. So, I mean, if you want to schedule it, we could schedule it and just give a report out,
Alternatively, I know we had staff there, and I think just for a short catch-up bullet point item, I think, not to task them, they have so much on their plate right now, but they would be able to report out. And I'm only doing that in defense of Luis, who is a blue ribbon, and he's he was very present, but meetings are not his favorite thing. So I don't want to necessarily put him on this.
He's come and reported to us before about it, so it shouldn't be an issue. And I know that Supervisor Sabatier, you mentioned a baseline of 2017. I mean, Ron Montez, the elder, mentioned a baseline, which was, a flourishing amount of hitch in the past. And then when they started, there was a specific amount. It probably wasn't as many as before. And so I don't know how we determined that baseline. USGS seemed to not even have really an answer to that either. It was just a theory. We think it came from Blue Lakes, and maybe you see what I'm saying? So there's really not a way to establish that unless, they have some other, whoever else has some sort of data or whatever the case may be. And it wouldn't really be fair to start a spot, and then that way we can determine that it's not an emergency anymore when we have a specific amount now, when, in the past, we would have to find some historical data or something that shows an amount. The only thing we have is oral, or someone else's own study or count, but then again, are they actual fish biologists or whatever the case may be? So it's complex,
Okay. All right, ready for action?
There's nothing further, Madam Chair. I move to approve the continuation of the proclamation declaring a Clear Lake hitch emergency.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And we are at 9:45 for our next timed item. 6.5, 9:45 a.m., public hearing, consideration of an ordinance amending Article 10 of Chapter 2 of the Lake County Code. And this is admin.
Madam Chair, we respectfully request to continue this item till January 9th at 9:45.
Okay, any comment from the board? Any public comment? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. Supervisor Sabatier.
Just as a clarification, Article 10 of Chapter 2 is the purchasing ordinance.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that for the public and the board, since I had to ask that question myself.
And further clarification, the staff memo mentioned a February date.
February 6th.
Yes, but we believe you can bring it in early January.
All right.
We need a time certain for this hearing,
9:45.
9:45 on
January 6th, I think it was.
somewhat
9th.
9th. Okay.
Flip it around. Madam Chair, I move to continue the public hearing to January 9th at 9:45 a.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We will go to 5.10. Appropriate late travel claims. Approve late travel claims for the period of July 30th, 2023 through August 2nd, 2023, and July 23rd, 2023 through July 28th, 2023 for correctional duty Sarah Vieira. And this is held by Supervisor Sabatier.
Thank you very much. So I had some questions about this, especially trying to better understand the process within the travel policy that we approved recently. And in conversations that I've had, I'm wondering if it's possible to delay this by 1 week to ensure that the auditor controller has been able to review the entire packet and let us know that the packet is complete in order for us to then make the approval or at least the consideration of it being past the 60 days. I don't think that we should be approving something if there is an incompleteness to the packet. And that is a comment that I did receive from the auditor, unless things have changed since then.
Anything from the sheriff?
Sheriff Rob, I have no problem continuing this next week to answer those questions.
Okay. Thank you. Any public comment? All right, then I'll bring it back to the board. I just want to continue it? Okay. We don't need an action on that.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff. Okay. We will continue this item and
Next week?
next week. Of the untimed items, which one? We have about 11 minutes. 7.3? Or 7.2?
I don't see her.
7.3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or
Director
calendars.
Jones? I don't see her.
Is Megan here for that? No.
Not necessarily.
All right, 7.2 then.
Okay.
Consideration of allocating funds for the design portion of PG&E transmission and distribution line relocation within the Middle Creek Restoration Project. Supervisors Crandall and Sabatier.
Yeah, I can do so if you'd like. And so this item is something we've been discussing at the Middle Creek Restoration Committee, but also a discussion we had back in 2019 with one of the representatives. His name's on the letter, but
Kelly something.
yeah, Kelly Peterson or something of the like, but I better get it right. So let's see. Either way, one of the requirements that we have is to work with PG&E. As you know, David Kelly, requirements is because the towers within the project need to be raised. PG&E had made that requirement. And so when we met with David, we had asked some questions about this. And in the letter, you'll see that the approximate cost for them to do the entire project is $2 million. So, and the figure was very preliminary. They'd like an advance deposit of 100,000, and then also to have another 100,000 for, I think it's the second letter that dictates that, but for both transmission towers and distribution poles relocated, and I think it's also a validation study that needs to be done. And so putting this in the hopper for either just to have it appropriated or something like that, because we have all of the others covered, if you will. We want to be able to buy this property and then get into project design with no hindrances or anything that's going to slow it down. We want to show, the powers that be that we're ready to move forward with this project. So that's what I have. I think Supervisor Spatier, if you have more.
Yeah, we were kind of holding back. We didn't want to give any money to PG&E to start something that eventually the Army Corps of Engineers would let us know that it was unnecessary. With our engagement lately with the Army Corps of Engineers, we are now having the conversation to move forward with the PG&E process in order for the Army Corps to really understand what is the plan from PG&E. For example, with the transmission towers, there's 7 of them. PG&E is asking for some sort of road access to each one of the transmission towers. We really need to figure out what that looks like. Are you asking for us to restore Middle Creek by getting rid of the levees and then creating new levees so you can access the transmission towers? That makes no sense. We'd like for them to start the design process so we can discuss how that design will have an impact on the overall design of the Middle Creek restoration. Again, they're asking for $100,000 for each of the towers, the distribution towers and the transmission towers, so a total of $200,000 would be allocated specifically for PG&E to start the design process. And those funds we have found can be allocated from cannabis funds from 2 separate buckets where there's some funding available for that cause.
So you said they're raising the towers, they're going to lift them up higher, or are they relocating them?
They want to determine how they're going to do so, because they don't want the towers submerged in the water. Even though if one of the levees break, it may happen, and we've still not got an answer from them on that. And we've also established with them in a discussion that they're saying they're doing maintenance, and we haven't seen it. So either way, it's a requirement, and so we really have no choice when it comes to that situation.
And for them, the raising of the tower is a relocation, so it's not like they're moving the towers, but it's being relocated in the sense of elevation.
So we pay this, the cost for the initial study and the planning, and then ultimately who pays for the relocation, this $7 million? Is that PG&E or is that us? Or is that yet to be determined?
At this moment in time, unless Scott DeLeon or Marina is online to correct me, unless Supervisor Crandall knows better than me as well, I believe that it is a LERD, a local...
LERDs.
Local, basically, we are the ones that have to produce the funding to make that possible, but I think our LERD percentage is 25. So we would be looking at finding 25%. For the entire project, it's going to be 25%. Has to come from the county. And so obviously we would continue to work with our state agencies, our federal agencies, in order to figure out how to get all those funding when it comes to the final amount that we need to make all of these things happen. But in order to understand all those things, we have to go through the design process in the first place.
Okay. Any other comments from the board?
Just one comment. Obviously, support the project. Obviously, it needs to be done. That conversation's been happening since I came on the board also. But I did have one question where the pots of money that was coming from. It seems like it would be more adequate to come out of the 467, the planning and water resources completely. But I understand the concept of pulling a little bit from each one. But the economic development and risk reduction, that's a challenge to meet it there. I think from the environmental health standpoint, definitely would think it fit under that portion of the tax funds. But I also had one other question about another fund that we had, the PG&E settlement funds that we had. I think there are still some funds in that account. I don't know if I know we've done some road projects out of there, but I just wanted to mention it. But in support of this, I absolutely support this needs to be completed.
Stephen Carter, Assistant County Administrative Officer. From the PG&E settlement funds, there is about, I believe, $3 to $4 million left. It's in our disaster budget unit. So any disaster comes down the line, we don't have to request state for advancing funds in that environment, but that is theoretically still available.
Okay.
And-
Those are just some questions I had, so I just wanted to talk through all three of those pots of funds that we have. All right.
Anything
Thank
else,
you,
Stephen?
LERD stands for Lands Easement Right of Way and Disposal. LERDs, yeah,
It's local.
yeah.
Did you have something else?
I did want to make sure, when I looked at the agenda item, if the letter is approved, the 100,000 has to go with the letter. So we can make that happen right away and then bring said funding sources back at mid-year to replenish wherever we make the payment from, which would probably be Budget Unit 1781, Special Projects.
Okay. So Vice Chair Simon, we can look at that in February?
Yeah, I'm fine with that, yes.
Okay. Supervisor Green?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Vice Chair Simon was talking about. The only question I had was the buckets of money and supportive of this moving forward.
Okay. Supervisor Sabatier?
And just as a quick explanation, appreciate the looking for other fund opportunities that we have in order to pay for this. But the entire Middle Creek Restoration Project also ends with the words flood control. And so I see that as a risk reduction, hence why that bucket I felt was appropriate to look at.
Okay.
But either way, if wherever we find it from and getting that support is really what matters today.
Okay. Anything from the public? Do we have anyone in the chambers or in the Zoom room? And I am not seeing any, so I will bring it back to the board for action.
So, quick question. Do I just change our recommended action to the allocation of $200,000 and not specify from cannabis taxes?
At this stage, are we just doing the 100,000 or are we expecting 200,000 before the end of the year? Because it can go through the normal process for the second half depending on timing.
I would like to move forward with the 200 so that each one of those, the distribution.
Just ready to go.
Yeah.
That works.
Okay.
And we could always put some money back in other areas, just again, doing whatever we do in February to move things around to make sure that things stay whole.
So to make that transparent, wherever we make the initial payment from would come out of general fund dollars. At mid-year budget, we would do the budgetary actions to transfer cannabis funds over to where we had paid it from, thus replenishing with cannabis funds. And depending on what your board decides, we can do 100,000 out of the risk reduction and 100,000 out of water resources, or whichever you decide.
And that specific decision would be in the mid-year as to what is
Correct.
replenishing the general fund?
Correct.
And it can come from the PG&E if that's the decision that we make as well?
It is possible, yes.
Okay, so at this moment in time, we could just leave it blank and just say allocate $200,000?
We'll make it specific at mid-year so that we have a conversation.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Madam Chair, I move to approve the allocation of $200,000 for the PG&E deposit needed for the Middle Creek Restoration Project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, what's going on out there? Yeah, I think so. Okay. 6.6,
We're okay technically.
okay, 10 a.m. item, consideration of rescission of tax deed hearing for property located at 4402 Ridge Road, Clear Lake, California, 95422, APN 040-121-070. We've got our tax collector, Patrick Sullivan, present.
Good morning, Board. Patrick Sullivan, Lake County Treasurer Tax Collector. I have Greg Peters from my office here with me. He's the accountant that's been primarily working on delinquent properties, so he's been a participant in this process. I'm hoping we can clarify who may be here for this hearing, if there's anyone on Zoom.
Right, and so we've got our petitioner, Robert Agodado. Are you here? Okay. We're going to swear in everybody that's here to give testimony.
Is there any possibility Leticia Bamaka is present on Zoom, the new owner of the property? We've attempted to reach her and weren't able to directly connect with her, but I just want to clarify that she's not
Don't see
present.
that name here.
Okay.
I do see a phone, 781-208-5907. Leticia, is that the name you're?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, if Leticia, what's the last name?
Bamaka?
Amaka is on Zoom, could you please raise your hand? Okay. I'm not seeing, yeah,
All right.
Okay.
So if you're going to speak on the hearing with your right hand raised, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right, so if it would please the board, I could begin with an overview of the history of the property, and then we can get into reviewing the petition that Mr. Aguado filed, if that's the chair's preference. All right. So for some background here, I think it's important to clarify the distinction between two different parcels that are involved. Mr. Aguado purchased two parcels in Clear Lake back in 2011. Those parcels had been previously merged in 2002, and he acquired them together simultaneously. In January 2011 was when the grant deed was recorded. In 2012 and 2013, he paid the taxes on both parcels. After that, both parcels went into default. We sent out notices during those following years. On one of the parcels, Mr. Aguado set up a payment plan. On the other, the one that was ultimately sold at the tax sale, he did not. In August of 2019, Mr. Aguado paid the prior delinquencies on the parcel that he has retained, not on the parcel that was sold at the tax sale. And I think that's the important distinction. Somewhere in this period, during those several years between, it appears around 2017, 2018, Mr. Aguado changed the address of record with the assessor's office on his primary parcel, the parcel on which his home is on. But he did not update the address on his second parcel, which I believe comprises part of his yard and garage area, if I'm following this correctly. So when notices were sent for the tax sale, we sent it to the address of record with the assessor's office. When we hire a contractor to do a review for parties of interest, they did not identify any other addresses associated with that parcel that had been previously recorded. So the notification went to a PO box that my understanding was no longer in use at that time. So for those prior years, those delinquent notices that went out, my understanding is that Mr. Aguado did not receive any of them because they were going to this prior address. So prior to the tax sale, we sent that notice. We published in the newspaper, published online. Ultimately, it sold in June of 2021. The minimum bid was $1,700. It ultimately sold for $2,200 to a company named Seized Assets LLC. In November of 21, just a few months later, it actually sold again. Seized Assets flipped it to a new buyer, Leticia Bamaka, and we have been unable to reach her. We attempted to reach her via certified mail. Mr. Peters did a search on Accurate in our office and using some of our other databases trying to locate her, but we were unsuccessful in doing so. We found a phone number that was for a relative, attempted to make contact that way, but we have not had success. So at this time, I don't know if Ms. Bamaka received notice of the hearing, but we did make all required efforts to reach her under the Revenue and Taxation Code. So, yes, so that's the history of the two properties that I think are at issue here. And I think it's important for the board to understand that in the context of what the petition was filed for. And I don't know if it's what's appropriate this time, if Mr. Aguado would speak and present his. Okay.
Sure. Do you want to come up to the microphone?
Good morning.
Good morning. And state your name and.
My name is Robert Aguado. I'm the owner of 14390 Ridge Road.
Okay, and do you have your case that you'd like to present to us?
Everything they're saying is correct, other than the fact that it was sent to a P.O. box that I had changed to a mailbox, which is 14390 Ridge Road, which is in front of my house. Never received any notice that the house was being for sale for anything at the time. Basically, I just didn't get in to receive anything, so that's why I filed the petition against it, to see if I could try and save it and at least try and pay back what I owe and go from there.
So did you receive property tax bill for your other parcel?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that paid up to date?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you have other properties around?
I do have another property at 15592 39th Avenue, and that one is paid up also. And then I do have where they reassessed the property, and now they've given me, they went back 5 years. When I purchased the property in 39th Avenue, it already had the modular on the property when I purchased it. And I guess it was just assessed as land only. And now they're saying it's assessed with the modular on there, and they reassessed it and gave me 30 days. So I am delinquent on the one payment for the 30 days that they've given me to try and pay $500 and something. But I went upstairs and talked to them yesterday.
So did it, if you're not receiving the tax bill on a regular basis for the second parcel, wasn't that something that concerned you, that maybe?
Yes, ma'am. At the time, I didn't understand that it was two parcels like that. Yes, I did pay it, but I guess I just didn't stay up on top of what exactly that I had to do. This is only my second house that I purchased. My first house I purchased in 2000, and I was taken away from me in 2010 from the Countrywide whole mortgage thing that got messed up. I lost my house there, moved up here. My wife was in an accident. She was hit head on, broke both her legs, and she does walk now. But with the money we had, we did purchase the other house. And the house that we purchased on 14390, she was in an accident before that and was hit blindsided at a red light. And we used that money to purchase the house on 14390.
So are all the other properties paid up to date?
Yes, I believe Mr. Aguado is correct at this point. The other properties had been delinquent in default, and for instance, may have gone to the tax sale in some cases, but in all of those cases, they were redeemed before the sale, before the deadline, and all delinquencies afterwards were ultimately paid. So during the period in question, I think that may be some of the confusion, is that multiple properties were delinquent, but ultimately all of those other delinquencies are now satisfied.
Okay. Supervisor Spatier?
I just wanted to make sure that we stayed on the topic of the agenda item, which is this specific property that we're speaking of. I think other activities on other properties would be, I would be cautious to having the conversations and using that as a basis for our decision.
Well, I think if you're getting notices in the mail and you understand that you have to pay your property taxes on a regular basis, that's why I was asking that. Supervisor Green?
Thank you. I see a staff recommendation to not approve the rescission, and thank you for your testimony. Appreciate that. But I'm going to look county council. I guess I'm looking at Revenue and Taxation Code 3731 as being applicable to this proceeding. And whatever lack of notice was given about what was due or not due on that property, I do note that the buyer of the parcel is not here today and has not been contacted by staff. So even if we sent a notice to the purchaser of the property by certified mail, the fact that we got it back and the fact that the purchaser of the property is not here today, if we were to proceed with a rescission today, and a refund were to be issued to this missing owner, as sensitive as I am to your plight and not having adequate notice, I'm also sensitive to the purchaser of that parcel and their right to have some understanding that this proceeding is going on, and some understanding that if we did do a rescission and issue a refund, there's somebody there as opposed to just sending a check to a P.O. box that's going to come back and eventually the state controller will get a handle on it. So do we have a dollar figure for what the refund would be if the rescission were approved today and if interest would apply?
So that's actually one of the problems with this situation. It's pretty complex because a sale did occur. There was a bona fide purchase for value after the sale completed. So seized assets purchased it for $2,200 at the auction, but then they flipped it to a new buyer for $7,000. So as far as our office is concerned, the maximum refund that would go out would be the $2,200 that we received. So she would only get $2,200. We'd have to do a pool calculation. I think the interest rate's around 1.4% during that time. But no, it'd actually be less. It might even be a full percent. But she might pick up an extra $100 in interest, let's say. But $2,300 would be the ballpark of the refund. So
what would be the claim of the new property owner then if it already got flipped? We could rescind the sale. The intermediary buyer would have no right to have sold that property. So we have another property owner downstream of this who has...
I would be careful to comment on that because that would be an issue between the new purchaser and the buyer at the sale. If there's some sort of action for recovery, we would only the maximum refund that we deal with is what the county received. To be frank, we haven't encountered this situation. I've looked in other counties and seeing a circumstance where a rescission happens after it has been sold to a new buyer. I haven't been able to find an example of it. It doesn't mean that one doesn't exist. I'm just unaware of one, and I haven't been able to see one. But I think if you were to read that statute as allowing this to happen, I would imagine that your board would direct us to refund Leticia Bamaka and not seized assets. Otherwise, Ms. Bamaka would end up with nothing. The property would be lost and she'd be out her whole $7,000.
We have Supervisor Spatier.
So Mr. Aguado called me, I don't remember exactly when, sometime last year. It was about a week before the deadline for submitting an appeal. He pled his case to me. I am his district supervisor. And there was something that came up, so I'm glad that he provided the appeal so we can dig into this a little bit further. So one of the steps that we take when we do a tax auction is to submit letters to all parties of interest. When you have this was my long-lasting question, and I still don't really understand it. How do you merge two properties but still have two APNs? So I'm told that happens. I wasn't aware that that's what are you paying for? This was requested by the city of Clear Lake so he can build a garage, AKA clubhouse, is what it's written in the deed, literally on the line that separates both of those properties. So the city requested a merger so that they can approve to not have setbacks from perimeter lines so that a garage can be built in the middle. So right now, half of a garage belongs to someone else and half the garage still belongs to Mr. Aguado. But with the parties of interest, when you have a merger, something in our system is identifying that a merger has occurred. A merger was spoken of by Mr. Sullivan. When there's two separate addresses on both the properties that are merged together, you would suspect that if there's a different address, that would be a party of interest that should have received a letter. No such letter was submitted to the other property address that is connected through the merger to the property that was sold. The legitimacy of selling a merged property is very possible. That's done. But to me, we missed one step, which was to identify a separate address on two merged properties and ensuring to submit a letter to let the other property owner, because maybe it's a partnership and it's actually two different people. Who knows how things can happen. But here, two separate addresses and only the one that kicked back and nothing was received because the P.O. box doesn't exist. But the other one that's connected through the merger, no such letter notifying them about the tax sale was ever submitted. Therefore, in my opinion, Mr. Aguado was never made aware through the correct process. Because of this, I see that as an unfortunate situation to happen. Mr. Aguado is the only one here showing up today. What I would love to do is give him the 45 days that most people are given to be able to respond to a notice that they receive. If he provides us with a cashier's check or a money order to provide the funds that are needed to balance out the records, and that'll be between him and Mr. Sullivan if the board so chooses to. If the funds are provided, then we go through the process at rescinding. I do not want to rescind where Mr. Aguado doesn't pay it up and it ends up just being a tax default that continues. But at the same time, I feel with that misstep, we did not have the right communication with a property owner that is absolutely connected and a party of interest to the property being sold, since it was merged to his primary property, which is where his house is, to the other property that has the garage clubhouse.
So if I could respond to that, Supervisor, I do agree if ultimately the board does choose to proceed with rescission, I think the type of solution that you suggested is appropriate. I would not want to rescind and be out the money and start this entire process over if it were to remain unpaid. My concern with the argument that the parties of interest search should have expanded out to the merged lots, I would be deeply concerned about the standard that would set for the county, because we are, as of right now, following the litigation with the city and the state controller's investigation, we're attempting to auction 1,000 properties a year, which I think, as I've pointed out, puts our office pretty much to the breaking point. So that standard you're describing, from my impression, is higher than what's required under the law and other practices for our office. We deal with ranches and other large lots where there's sometimes dozens of different properties attached to deeds. And we're really restricting that parties of interest search to what's in the chain of title. That broader definition of parties of interest, I guess when you start talking about partnerships or implies corporations or companies, that would take us far outside the recorder's index in what we're looking at. And so I think I'm concerned if we apply that standard, we have no ability to go any deeper than what we do. We barely got these notices out in the past in time to do a sale of this magnitude. So if we're looking for this higher standard, I think that would potentially force us to reevaluate our entire structure. That being said, I do agree this is a very unfortunate situation. I wish we could reach a new buyer. It doesn't appear that there's any viable use for this lot for her. The only person that can really benefit from it is Mr. Aguado. It's his yard and potentially a piece of his garage. So, my suspicion is that this new buyer may not have really understood what she was doing and just bought it from one of these companies that swoops up the properties at the auction. So I am sympathetic to this whole situation. There's unfortunately, no matter what we do, I don't think there's a good outcome. There's no way we get an outcome that's good for everyone in this. So that being said, I think your board's free to do whatever it wishes, but I will just defend that the practices of our office, I don't think there was a deficiency. It doesn't mean you can't proceed with another action. But I just want to clarify that because it implicates our other sales. So.
And I want to say that this is somewhat of a potentially unique situation, and that the fact that there is an appeal process, the fact that a party of interest was not contacted doesn't mean that I expect you from now on to always do that. But at the same time, if somebody comes with what I feel is a good argument to make that they were not made aware and they are a party of interest, that I think that stands, in my opinion, as a person who has the right to appeal this and a person who has the right to recoup his losses. And again, I don't see all parties here. And I think that this is somebody who lives here versus somebody who does not live in the county and bought a piece of property through speculation potentially, rather than, I would assume sight unseen based on what the property looks like. And I think the appeal process has a purpose, and that's to protect our residents from potential situations like this in case they happen. And to deny it means that we would be stripping people's properties away without potentially notifying them appropriately and not giving them that chance to fix the issue.
So what I'm not hearing is the responsibility of the property owner. Looking at their bill, receiving their bill, paying their bill, doing everything that is your responsibility as a property owner in our county. And it's this is a difficult situation. There's a lot of circumstances, but I don't feel like we can rescind something based on this story. That sets a very bad precedent. We did all the noticing that's required that we do with every other property, but this opens us up to a lot more appeals. And if we're, I just can't, I can't agree to rescinding this. Everybody that buys property in our county has a responsibility, and we can't overlook that. Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you. I'm not as concerned about precedent here. This is a unique situation. I am concerned that if we were to attempt to do a rescission today, that we would not be able to execute it. So I just want to clarify for Mr. Sullivan that we have not been in contact with the purchaser of the property, nor have we been in contact with the successor in interest.
Well, and I think I may have to ask Lloyd to speak on this. The successor in interest definition, I'm not sure who that would be in this. The new purchaser is Leticia Bamaka, who we have been unable to reach in any form, written or via phone. I'm not sure. I think in order to...
So my specific question on that, and this will go to county council, if we can't get the purchaser or the successor in interest to sign off on this, even if we approve the rescission today under subdivision D of RTC 3731, we can't get a document to the county recorder that can be executed. We need the signature of both the treasurer, tax collector, and either the purchaser or the successor in interest, and that acknowledgement then goes to the county clerk and the county recorder. So absent a signature or the ability to get a signature from the purchaser or the successor in interest, we are, as a practical matter, blocked from doing a rescission today because we can't execute it.
I might be able to speak to that.
Go ahead.
Just because there's two different sections that we're referring to. There's 3731A and then B. A was regarding the consent, that if we did have the consent of the other party. The reason we're doing this hearing, my office noticed it, was that not only do we not have the consent, we couldn't even reach the other party. So we don't need her signature on this. If your board wanted to proceed with the rescission, we could do it. It's a different, there's essentially two different forms that I can record. One where I have the consent and one without. So if your board orders the rescission, my office is able to do that on our own. It wouldn't be required to have her signature.
Based on your understanding, we're going under subdivision A.
Well, B is the reference to the consent not being obtained.
Yes, it will be, at this point, it would be under, we're working under 3731 subdivision B. So, which
So how does subdivision D interface with B?
I believe a subdivision D would apply only in situations if the rescission was pursuant done to subdivision A, which would require the consent. If consent is not able to be obtained by the necessary parties, then, and I think this applies to this proceeding, we're working under section 3731B.
Okay, anyone else from the board? Any comments? Yes.
Just so to make it clear, I've also tried to send a letter to the owner
Okay.
and got no response.
Okay.
I would just further highlight again that this is unfortunate. It's truly unfortunate we can't reach the new owner because I really don't understand what value this lot could be up to her. We had hoped that they all could have attempted to reach a solution outside of this proceeding, just because this is an outcome. I mean, this is certainly an unfortunate aspect of tax sales, and one that makes me uncomfortable, with the larger scale sales, is that these tax deeds are imperfect. The new buyer did purchase it from seized assets, but, a buyer should be aware that in that year after the sale, they can be challenged. So, yeah, I don't know why she's not reachable. A family member did come into our office earlier this year and pay a tax bill. But even with that name, trying to track it down, we have just not been able to make contact with her, so.
Okay. Did you have anything?
No, not at this point.
Okay. Okay, so we'll close the hearing and don't get public comment though, because we only had one person swear in, correct? Yeah, okay. So deliberation?
So I've already let you know where I stand. I think this is what the appeal process is. I see there is a chance given to those who don't pay their taxes to redeem. Many properties get redeemed at that point. We do not place any negative connotation on those that follow that process, but those people that redeem are the ones who have received a letter knowing that their property is going on a tax sale. I see this, again, the merger, I think, is my issue that I have. What is the purpose of us taking money from somebody to claim they have merged their properties, and that when we sell one of their two properties, because they didn't merge physically, it's still two separate APNs, that we do not have the ability to say, well, no contact was made with the other merged property. If it wasn't for that merger, I would not have that same outlook on this situation. And I think this is somewhat of a unique situation because of that, because most properties you merge, you can get rid of that line and create a new APN. This one, and I'm just going to be blunt, I feel we're stuck in a 1920s mentality where we're cutting a piece of a parcel out and taping it to another map, and that was probably frowned upon back then, where that's why you kept it separate and merged it. But in today's technology, you would suspect that unless there's jurisdictional lines that are being crossed, you should be able to merge any property together and create a new APN. Because of that official connection, because again, it had to be paid for, it had to be stamped, it had to be approved, I feel that this opens up the possibility for the appeal. And I would love to make a conditional offer to, if the payment is made and if the rescission is possible, that we move forward with that. I don't personally want to say rescind today unless, because there's certain steps that need to be taken. And I'd ask Mr. Guantavano to help us better understand what should be the statement to make. But today, I want to see this moving towards the rescission.
I've merged properties before. I've been through the process. It's there's a lot to learn, but you're working through it with us together, with the county, and so it's kind of the responsibility is on the property owner to make sure that they fully understand what it looks like and, and receiving your bills and noticing if you have, what the size of your parcel is and if is it bigger, is it smaller? So, you've got to be aware of what's happening too.
So let me add one part that I forgot to mention. In speaking with the city of Clear Lake, the city of Clear Lake sent a new APN number to the county. The city of Clear Lake sees this as one APN, sees this as one property. So I think there may be a jurisdictional.
But the city of Clear Lake doesn't send the taxes out.
But they're the ones who went through the process. They are still the ones that submit the information to the county based on the needs of the project that he brought or his predecessor brought to the city. Because in speaking with Mr. Roberts, who used to work for the county, I was told this is seen from the city perspective as one property, which I think creates some of the dilemmas that we are experiencing. Again, making this a somewhat unique situation.
Supervisor Green.
I'm just wondering from a procedural standpoint, I know this is all noticed, so we're all ready to do something or not do something today, but is there a way to effectively deny the rescission without prejudice? And should we get additional information about the property owner or the new property owner or their successor in interest so that we could actually have some adequate notice and bounce this idea around? Or is you get a one and done recession hearing after public notice and this is our only shot at it? Because I could make findings in support of the idea that the property shouldn't have been sold, even if he should have known better, even if the new buyer should have known better. But absent having the buyer or the successor in interest present here today, it seems like that alone should not torpedo his petition here. So is there a way to either continue to a date and time certain so we can continue due diligence efforts to find the new property owner or successor in interest, or are we stuck by the four corners of the statute to proceed today either with an approval or denial?
Your board has the option to continue the hearing to a date and time certain. I believe Treasurer Tax Collector Sullivan can speak to the essentially a continuance of this hearing from, I think it was back in August as well, as the circumstances surrounding that and the efforts that were taken to try to reach out to the new owner. But that procedurally, that is an option for your board. To continue this hearing to a later date and time certain.
If I could say, if your board does choose to take that option, I would recommend if we could ask Mr. Aguado if he does stand ready to pay those back taxes, the redemption amount that would have been due, which I can provide. It was $1,662.09. And during that time, if the board is going to continue it and take it under further advisement, he could deposit that with our office in a secured form of payment, like a cashier's check. And then that would, allow the board to make that determination knowing that the funds are actually available to pay. That's just a recommendation that I would make during that time.
Wasn't that just the default balance of the grant?
One moment.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, that number is correct, the $1,622.59.
This is in an effort to try and reach the new property owner, and she's not reachable.
Yeah, we have not had any success. So I guess our office position is that if your board wishes to continue it, we can continue efforts to reach her. We do have, a phone number of a relative that Mr. Peters may be able to speak to his conversation with her.
Yes, through the accurate search and the physical address, a phone number came up, and when the person answered, he said that Ms. Bamaka was his cousin, and that I asked if he would relay a message. He said he would, and I contacted him the second day after not having heard from her, and I asked if he could, double check it because it was very important because of today we were having a meeting regarding her property at the Board of Supervisors. He said he would, but even as of today, I have not heard from her.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Real quick, you obviously had submitted a mailer to the addresses. Did that get kicked back?
Yes, it arrived back this week or this past week.
So even Ms. Bamaka's address at this moment in time is not up to date?
She did not sign for it. It was returned.
We could attempt a mailing without using certified mail and just another drop.
Are any of the tax bills being kicked back for that address?
No, the tax bills are being paid.
Okay.
Obviously, very complicated situation. Hear the concerns, but just want to make it clear that I'm ready to support staff's recommendation today to move forward.
And would staff's recommendation come in the form of a motion to deny the rescission?
Would be to, as stated in the staff memo, it would be a motion not to order the rescission of the tax deed.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion passes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item, 6.7, 10:15 a.m. Public hearing, consideration of closing of the CDBG Cobb Water System Improvement Grant. This is by admin.
Hello. Is this one on? Okay. Hello, with me today I have Jeff Lucas, Casey Moreno, Deputy County Administrative Officer for Finance and Budget. So I have Jeff Lucas with CDS Consulting with me. We are before your board today to present the closeout of the Cobb Mountain Water System Improvement, which was managed by CDS. The total grant was just over $5.2 million. $740,560 was returned to the state as unspent. The improvement project utilized 3 contractors and created jobs for 6 new labor positions, 1 Section 3 trainee, and 1 operator. If you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer those.
What a big project. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for all the support the board gave us to access those funds from the state. A couple comments. The project did come in under budget overall on the use of the funds for the construction for the water improvement systems. And also we did return admin money that was unspent. We just didn't need that amount, that full amount that was available. So that's was not drawn down by the microphone. Oh, sorry. I have a problem with that, sorry. So the project was completed, the systems are in, and did what it was supposed to do. And it was took us quite a while to implement, but we're happy it was completed successfully.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? I'm not seeing anyone in Zoom. We'll bring it back to the board for action.
Move to approve the closing of the CDBG Cobb Water System Improvement Grant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and thank you so much for all of this work.
Thank you.
Do you have your appointment? Did you make an appointment?
I mean, we can do this one if you
Well,
want.
that's what I'm saying, we don't take a break.
Yeah, let's do that, yeah.
We're going to push through the next item and not take a break so that Supervisor Crandall can get somewhere. So we'll go on to our 6.8, 10:30 a.m. item, consideration of an update on recent multi-agency engagement to combat the opioid crisis in Lake County. And we've got several people here coming on up. Director Jones, good to see you.
Miss Sarah Weber, could you please come forward?
She's trying to avoid it. You're not coming up, Wendy?
You can take a seat, yes. All right. Thank you, Board, for having us here today. Unfortunately, Deputy CEO Rothstein is unable to attend, although this is an item co-sponsored by the Administration Office in Behavioral Health. So let me just pull up the memo. So this is an update to a lot of things that are happening in our community that appear to be coalescing on response, and a really coordinated response. So we released a press release last week, the week before, time is slipping away from me now, that was multi-agency, many county agencies, as well as community-based agencies, including tribal entities, partnered on a press release to draw attention to the recent, we can call them poisonings or overdoses, depending on the situation of youth in Lake County. Some of those instances of poisonings involve youth who were ingesting fentanyl, likely ingested fentanyl and did not know. Although official data from the coroner's office and sheriff's office is not yet available, it takes some time. But in order to get ahead of that and prevent more unnecessary death, particularly of our youth, we are really looking at exploring a robust community outreach and engagement plan. We talked a lot on Friday about barriers that have historically prevented us from coming together, but saliently the discussion focused on solutions and forward momentum. The opioid settlement funds were brought up as a topic of discussion. We anticipate bringing a contract to the board early next year for a consultant to support the county with developing an expenditure plan for the opioid settlement funds. And I believe this meeting was kind of a first step towards convening the stakeholder group. And I would like to highlight for your board, this is Miss Megan Morgan. And one of the reasons that we hired her as a community liaison is to be present and really put out more of a face in the community about behavioral health. We're looking at expanding not only just substance use disorder and prevention services, but all of our services through CalAIM. So we really want the community to be aware of the expanded services and supports. And so to that end, we are putting a person who can sit at every table. It's impossible for me to be at every single meeting or any of our staff, but we always want a behavioral health staff at a table when we're asked to provide that information. Additionally, Miss Sarah Weber, who's an AmeriCorps Vista with the SafeRx program with health services. Unfortunately, Deputy Director Kim Tangerman from Health Services could not be here today. She had another obligation, although I know she is here in spirit. She has been very integral and invested in that work. So that's basically, in a nutshell, I think, largely what has been discussed and where we're at. Sarah, is there anything else that you'd like to add in particular about SafeRx or anything that I may have missed? Yeah. Oh, is it on? You may have to press the button. Oh, sorry.
It's good.
It's on.
It's always on.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to thank Elise for convening this meeting. It was incredibly productive, and SafeRx is looking forward to continuing our response and hopefully prevention efforts throughout the rest of this month and through the new year.
Okay. So thank you for this presentation and the report out of the meetings that happened. What Supervisor Crandall and I are also looking for today is direction from the board to bring our agencies, public health, behavioral health, probation, the district attorney's office, law enforcement, the sheriff's office, from our side to expand this collaboration so that we can really truly move forward with all agencies and stakeholders in the county in this campaign, in this messaging, and developing plans for the opioid settlements. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Okay. So we just wanted to open this up for conversation, report out on some initial meetings, and get the board's direction to move this forward. Supervisor Sabatier. Oh, go ahead.
I forgot something, and I'll be remiss if I don't say it. I'm sorry. I'd also like to report that Dr. Duhan, our public health officer, is also looking into, I believe it's called a health alert, and has been advising us as to the distribution of Narcan. And I would just like to say that anybody over the age of 12 may receive Narcan without parental consent and use it as a first aid tool. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there's a lot. I'm going to focus on youth. What are the available services for youth substance abuse disorder in Lake County, or contracts that we have that, again, can serve that population?
Mm-hmm. Sarah, do you want to, we can talk, maybe because there's a whole spectrum, right, of like prevention to treatment. So upstream, downstream, and typically health services is public health looks at upstream factors. So they're not going to write out prescription after prescription for somebody experiencing diarrhea. If they know that there's a contaminated well, they're going to go to the well and say, what's wrong with this? So that's kind of the public health approach. And I didn't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about some of the prevention activities around substance use, if there are any that I'm not aware of.
I think that primarily, you know of most of what we're doing. What I've mainly been focusing on, and my time here, is distribution of Narcan or naloxone to anyone who needs it, including, as Elise mentioned, we are now offering Narcan to any youth over the age of 12 based on the public health officer's health alert, which I believe was released just a few weeks ago.
Thank you. And so, do you,
Wendy Monfrance, Chief Probation Officer. In the county, besides the services that behavioral health provides for individual treatment for youth with substance abuse and more of a group setting classes, we have programs through our office with our Family Wrap program where youth that are struggling and have some kind of contact get at least a 90-day service with that program, and substance abuse can be addressed with maybe it's sometimes called a rehab specialist or a one-on-one person that's working with the youth. In our full wrap program, the same service is also available if that's considered one of the needs of the child. And that program goes for up to 18 months. They also can refer them to individual therapists. RCS has some treatment providers for those also. We do. We have our three school resource officers who are one-on-one talking with youth every day about substance abuse, and if a school identifies someone, they can be put in one of our programs. We also have another one, Probation Family Pro, that we contract with Healthy Start for providing those services and linking to behavioral health services or RCS. The school resource officers also are, though it's not the opioid topic, they are teaching in all fifth grade classes in the county on tobacco and vaping use, and that starts here in the next couple of weeks. We have classes at the same three high schools, Girls Circle and Boys Council, where kids that are identified by the school, not necessarily having any contact with probation, but the probation officer is teaching and leading these groups, and those can be topics that are taught there. Behavioral health has their outreach team that is going out to the schools and training on these different topics with the general population. Usually 9th and 10th grade is the target for those services. So I think that covers pretty much what we're doing.
I think so. And on the treatment side, the organized delivery system waiver will require our county plan to have youth residential treatment. And so we are already doing exploration of what that may look like in our county. It will have to be a in-county provider, which we know is difficult and is a real need for those kids who do need that level of intervention. At the meeting, the educators, the educational professionals also talked about adding education around prevention and substance use to their standing health curriculum. And so that was kind of an exciting discussion to hear, where we're integrating it and also destigmatizing it from other health issues, right? So whether or not we like to admit it, not all youth who experiment with substances have a substance use problem. It's actually relatively common for youth to experiment with substances. Unfortunately, vaping is an epidemic, and they are lacing vapes with fentanyl, and they're also doing pill presses where it looks like ecstasy or whatever other kind of drug. So youth are not ingesting this with the intention of doing fentanyl or dying. And so that's why naloxone is so important, just as a first aid. I mean, you never know. And so that's kind of the framing there. But I think that about sums it up. And thank you so much for.
Of course.
Yes.
And just for your awareness, the outreach by all of the agencies has been nothing like I've ever seen in my 15 years here. We've really, everybody has come together, the school districts, the Office of Education, every county agency, the tribal organizations, just the participation and willingness to move quickly on this horrible topic has been phenomenal.
The rapid response from all of our stakeholders and partners has been incredible. I don't know who was first. Were you first?
I was.
Okay.
But I did want to say something, sorry, that I didn't earlier, but I'm really glad to see the Narcan. You know, I think that's a good reactive combatant in educating anybody that wants to be in a position to help somebody who has an overdose. And I don't know, I'm thinking of ways a lot of these opioids are accumulated and given out in other aspects. I know a lot of it isn't something we can control as it comes from outside sources, but there is some things, and I'm wondering if we, at our disposal within our jurisdiction, can do something about it. And that is, Supervisor Sabatier mentioned youth, but then I wanted to mention seniors, and I don't think it's necessarily the IHSS workers. I think they do their due diligence and their work, but it's the others that portray that they're caretakers and they take care of these seniors, yet they accumulate these opioids for their own purpose. And so again, I want to emphasize that I'm not saying it's the IHSS workers. There's people that consider themselves caretakers, and at times you'll see them on Lake Sheriff with caretaker on their position. So is there something at our disposal to, maybe our district attorney can look at to help enhance some sort of way to keep them accountable for elder abuse and anything else that you can attach to it to hinder this from happening, at least control inwards. I do know a lot of times our hands are tied. We heard that at that conference on how, especially with fentanyl, the challenges with charging per the amount. So I'm just throwing things out there, and I don't think necessarily it's something your department per se can do anything about. Same with yours. I think it's more of a level of social services and possibly the district attorney dealing with that, or unless you have some other insight.
I do have a comment on that. When welfare fraud investigators were in our office, one of the things they investigated were IHSS abuse and elder abuse claims. And I don't know if there was a social services regulation or something, but that was something that was taken away from their investigative
Purview.
Yeah. So I know that that office is fully staffed. It's part of the district attorneys now, but it's not something they look into anymore. And that may be something they could focus on.
Okay, thanks.
I will just state that Sheriff Howell was at this meeting, and I think he had reported seizing like
10 million.
10 pounds?
10 pounds, yes.
10 pounds of fentanyl.
Which is a lot.
Oh, and 44,000 pills.
Yeah.
Yeah, so important to have everyone together. And the district attorney, she did participate in one of our calls. Has she been?
She had not on that, and for no particular reason. It was just everything was happening so fast. But absolutely, that side of it and enforcement is critical.
I believe she was on vacation.
Right, yeah, she did say that she was willing to be involved too and be a partner. Supervisor Green.
Yeah, thank you. One, appreciate all the work that's going on. Any comments I make right here are not going to be critical of those efforts. But I'm so old, I grew up in the Reagan era when it was all red ribbons and just say no. And I'd like to think we progressed since that time to make use of evidence-based curricula within our schools. And I believe an emphasis of Prop 64 also was to establish new programs so that peer counseling could be a thing, not just what we do in the SUDS world for adults, but that we could establish some level of peer counseling for people struggling with SUDS in our school settings. So I guess my first questions would have to be, what is the state of the art of evidence-based curricula that is being applied both for our adult populations and our juvenile populations? And second question would be, and maybe you can't answer it, but what is the current state of peer counseling programs in our schools?
Those are great questions. So from the behavioral health side, it's a renaissance of peers in both the mental health and SUDS programs, which is great to see. It works the best that way. So one of the programs that's not specific to substance use is actually teen mental health first aid, where teenagers learn about the signs and symptoms of mental illness so they can better assist their friends. And I think that a model similar to that would be helpful. And we talked some about that, of identifying like even the every 15 minutes effort. Maybe there's another initiative we could take on that looks at that, but overdoses or poisonings related to fentanyl, because it's so common. So I agree with you that peer-led is the best. And overall, the overarching theme here is harm reduction. That's the camp that we're all living in, is helping people make the safest choices that they can. So that would be what I have to say. And I don't know if you have anything to add.
Just related to evidence-based, a majority of the programs that we use in our office are evidence-based or that we contract for. So it's been what we've been doing for 15 years.
And just a second, not even a question, just an observation. You're still limited in your ability to provide full information based on federal funding and the limitations of what can be said in a school setting, in a juvenile probation setting. So when it comes to, and the focus here right now is obviously on opioids and fentanyl and the wide prevalence and availability of that, and methamphetamine and other drugs. And because you aren't able to message on this, I guess I get to. So here to this empty room, but if anyone is watching somewhere down the road, I would like us to start exploring ways to have a more a greater understanding of cannabis and the fact that it does not have any acute toxicity. It can actually kill people dead. That would require the use of Narcan. And it is not, obviously, I'm not up here flying the flag, say go smoke a bunch of weed, but in terms of harm reduction, I'm absolutely saying that. And if there's no ability for our established programs to message to the youth of this county that if you're not feeling good and you're self-medicating for whatever reason, please distinguish between synthetic chemicals and pills that you may be able to get out on the school campus. Or
I think you need to be wary of your comments, because a lot of vaping cartridges are what's hurting us the most, because nobody knows what's inside the cartridge, and that's where fentanyl can be found.
Not just that, but cannabis is laced with it too. So it's basically any substance that you did not get directly from your pharmacist. And so let's not put out any misinformation.
Okay, it's not misinformation to say that cannabis by itself, if it is not adulterated, will not kill you.
Okay, but
Okay, let's-
I think we still need to separate the conversation because a lot of people are getting harmed thinking that what they have is legit. Now, maybe they got it from a illegitimate source, but the fact is that that style of thinking can lead to harmful places. I do not disagree with you of the harmful effects of unadulterated cannabis versus fentanyl. Fentanyl is something I wish we could unexist. Unfortunately, we can't do that. But there are dangers with drinking a drink in a place that is public that you have to be careful as well. And alcohol is legal and in small dosages, not deadly, but can still lead to absolutely horrifying situations. So I don't think we should advocate for any specific thing other than making sure we're offering everything we can to reduce us being on a national map that we have one of the worst rates of overdose and overdose deaths. And that is disheartening that we are there. I appreciate what we are doing. And I'll just continue real quick. I think that we need to figure out what we're doing with our opioid settlements. I think that's where this conversation leads to. We know that we have a certain amount of millions of dollars. I don't even remember where we're at, if it's 18 or if it's 12, but it's within that range. We know we're going to receive money, a slow leak every single year. And I think we need to figure out how to leverage those funds, not just use what we get, but leverage it to make more, whether that's creating 40 million out of that, or even I'm willing to go into debt service and say, hey, we're going to get 18, let's spend 12 million today and pay it off as we receive the rest of the settlement.
I'm going to remember you said that.
Okay.
But I think that we have to think more than just the money we get on an annual basis and look at the total amount that we've been promised that we get, because the total amount can get us a whole lot more to help than just the small incremental amount we receive. Now, I do want to share something that I experienced and had a conversation, and I think I might have spoken a little bit about it, but I want to repeat it because I think it's an idea. I've been a part now of the jail medical conversations quarterly. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they said 40% of those that are incarcerated in our jail have drug addiction. It's higher than that. I was trying to stay low so I didn't exaggerate, but it's higher than that. And so have substance abuse disorders. In Arizona and Coconino County, once you finish your sentence, they created a program called Exodus, which is a dormitory-style jail. It's not jail, it's dormitory, like a college dorm room, where you voluntarily say, yes, I want to be part of this rehab. It's a 90-day rehab structure, and it's attached to the jail. It has the right folks in the sense of it has medical care providers. It has people to make sure that they stay safe. The recidivism rate of the program of those that voluntarily choose to go in Exodus is a 30% recidivism rate to jail. Those that voluntarily say no are still stuck at the 70 to 90% recidivism rate. We have a captive audience who obviously has a high level of drug addiction issues to deal with, which is probably why they go back into our jails. That to me is a potentially low-hanging fruit of something that we can help and create a similar type of program that is out there. I heard from the sheriff out there that his deputies get stopped in the street asking to be arrested because it is the only program they would be able to access to get the drug rehab. Because if you have money, you're going to have to figure out how to pay for it. There's so many barriers that leads to not having access to the programs that we need to help each other. So I want to look at the big pot of money. I want to know who the partners in SafeRx are. I feel we've lost some since we started. I know I talked to one of my pharmacists in Clear Lake. I don't know that he was happy with me at the end of the conversation, but pharmacies have an absolute partnership in helping because they were absolutely a part in creating the problem that we still have today. They may have stopped the amount of pills that they were handing out, but they are still a part of the problem that has been created and continues today. Let's figure out what they can do to help us. I'm not saying we need to go after them like others have gone after Walgreens. These are our local people. We need them as partners, not trying to take something from them. How can we help each other? So I'd love to learn more about plans for the opioid settlement, and I'd love to figure out more of who are our partners in SafeRx, who are we missing, and where are we going? Because I know that lately it's been, we want to have a public forum to find out what we're doing with that. On a personal level, I feel like we're just kicking the can down the road. I know it might be a requirement, but we know what we need. I want to look at some project ideas today.
Okay, but the agenda item is to report out on the meetings and to give staff to continue down the road with the partners that are all listed here and more. So that's what we're giving direction on today, not hammering out the plans today. We can bring this back, but we need to, Supervisor Crandall and I called everybody together, said, do we want to do this? Everyone was very enthusiastic. And then we said, have their first steps meeting, and then we need to come to the board and get direction. That's where we're at today. Sounds like you're in support of this direction.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'll just restate that we will be bringing the contract for the consultant here next month.
Yep. Great. Vice Chair Simon?
Yeah, obviously in support of doing the work that needs to continue with all the agencies, every agency in your tribes, behavioral, all the county that's doing the work. But not trying to set the plan forward, but we've got to meet the youth where they're at. And you guys put it on their Snapchat, TikTok, Peg, because it's living in a fantasy world to think drug experimenting is going to go away at some point. It's never going to go away, at least not in my lifetime. So meeting them where they're at, going to the schools. There's a program that CHP does where they act like there's a major crash, and then they take the people out of the community. What's it called?
Every 15 minutes?
Every 15 minutes. That's dramatic. If you go through that, it hits home. We got to meet the children where they are. Then we need to prosecute the individuals that keep doing this. I know the state is making some changes, the Department of Justice. That's how we're going to try and move the needle. I even had discussions with you about the crisis is not going to go away. It's not only fentanyl, now it's that other one called
Xylazine.
Trank or whatever. Yeah, xylazine or whatever. So it's going to continue to happen, but we look at naloxone after you've taken it, but there is also a tool that I see, and probably most of you have seen, that every officer carries that they can test what kind of drugs they have. Why are we not having that conversation to get those on the street for free? If you're going to experiment, how about test the stuff that you're going to experiment with first? I don't know. I'm not encouraging anything, but man, what a challenge. And PEG TV, I think really important. When the pandemic hit, we did some of those videos. I think it's very important that it gets out there. Oh, I forgot to say YouTube. They all do, even the little ones, 2 years, 3 years old, are watching YouTube. It's got to be there. It's got to be locally. It's got to be geo-fenced to the schools. It's got to be there. Just meeting them where they're at. And I completely agree, talking to the children, but so it's in support of it. And I don't do any of those things I just said, YouTube, Snap, all that stuff, but that's what the kids do. And I always say that. We did Christmas in Middletown, and, most of the kids are walking around with their phones while they're doing this stuff and meeting them where they're at. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, just very quickly, I know this will come back. And again, this discussion today just kind of reinforces 20, 30 years of harm reduction talks that very pointedly do not have the necessary nuance to distinguish cannabis from other more toxic substances. That's not to say that cannabis cannot be an adverse impact on certain individuals, but I will say this, we can get them back and work with them if their central nervous system is not being suppressed. And I appreciate the comments that certainly some herbal products out there could be laced, but state licensed cannabis products are not only sold in the state of California, they're produced in this county. So I want to be very clear that whatever one may think of cannabis and whatever stigma has been attached to it over the years for various reasons, it is a state legal substance. It will not kill you, and state licensed products exist, and that is a harm reduction measure. And I would point people that if you got only one thing to choose from if you're hurting, turn to the state licensed cannabis products. They are tested and they will not kill you, and avoid other things. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any public comment? Let's see if we have any hands up in the Zoom room. I am not seeing any. So I will bring it back to the board, and it sounds like we have consensus on direction to continue this work. And I'm just so happy that you've stepped up, Elise, because somebody needed to champion this, and I know that you and Public Health and all of our other directors are going to work together. And so thank you so much for our team coming together to work with the other partners and agencies across the county. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Let's hit 7.3. Consideration of revocable license agreement between the County of Lake Behavioral Health Services Department and the City of Lakeport. Director Jones.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to bring this agreement forward. The work, and I want to apologize, Super Spatier, Supervisor, you emailed me some questions and I have not been able to get to them, so I'll answer them here today. So what does this mean, essentially? This means that a behavioral health staff, which will be a member of our crisis team, will have an office at Lakeport Police Department, and that will help us jointly respond to mental health, behavioral health crises in the community, along with Lake Family Resource Center, who also has a program where they go out and respond. So it's just better coordination, and it's also preparing us for the implementation of the mobile crisis benefit going live on January 1st, where we as the behavioral health department are required to respond 24/7, 365 to behavioral health crises in the community and actually go out to where people are. And that can be accessed through 988. So we're happy to continue our collaboration and the important work with our law enforcement partners. That is the introduction to the item.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Any questions from the board? Supervisor Green?
Yeah, I just see the form of the contract as a license, and so I just want to highlight, as stated in the contract, it's not a lease, it's a license. It's a little unusual in that. So was the original draft, did that come from the city, or did we do this? And just any explanation if that needs reinforcement.
Yes, I believe it did come from the City of Lakeport, and of course it has been reviewed by council here.
Thank you.
Okay. We have, go ahead.
Just saying, I appreciate, I know you're having conversations with other jurisdictions as well. I think that any coordinated effort to help, we know that our law enforcement out there are kind of doing similar things to what our teachers are expected to do. They're counselors, they're mental health specialists, as well as trying to deal with crime all at the same time. So having the right people in the right places can help make sure that we compartmentalize the expertise and be able to overlap and complement one another. So I think this is a great idea. Looking forward to seeing how other jurisdictions take this in stride and move forward with it. And I expect that that will probably happen.
Okay. Any public comment? Not seeing any, so I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Further, Madam Chair, I move to approve the revocable license agreement between the County of Lake Behavioral Health Services Department and the City of Lakeport, and authorize the Behavioral Health Director to sign the agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. What time is your appointment?
I can go. We can do one
Let's
more.
do calendars, and then we can, who wants to start with calendars?
I will.
Okay, go ahead.
So tomorrow I'll be joining a discussion for the Moloch-Loyick Walker Ridge discussion. It's hosted by Bureau of Land Management and Mendocino National Forest, and so I'll be attending that either via Zoom or in person. It's in Woodland. And then Thursday, South Deal and then Area Agency on Aging. Friday, the RC listening session, and I think I'm going to have to join via Zoom, unfortunately, on that.
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, and then Monday, CAO meeting, Farm, Ranch, and Rural EPA work group meeting, and then CERF has been moved from yesterday to next week. There's a mail out that didn't get mailed out in time to get enough participation. So in turn, this mail out will go out so people have ample time to know when, where, and what for this meeting, which will be at the Lucerne Alpine Senior Center, 6 p.m. Monday, December 18th.
Okay.
That's it.
Supervisor Spatier.
I have a LTA APC meeting tomorrow. Hopefully that will end in time so I can make it to my NACO Public Health Policy Steering Committee regarding rural health issues. Then I start Thursday with the pick count committee as we get closer to our January 25th date. Meeting in the afternoon. I'm still figuring out if I'm going to choose to join the Hope Rising CHIP committee or if I will make it to the graduation of the build program over at Ripe Choice. Then I will be joining the YCCD Board of Directors meeting later on that evening. Hope Rising Governing Board meeting on Friday, and then meeting about the food policy stuff in the afternoon, and meeting with the Chancellor of YCCD to discuss dual enrollment possibilities and seeing where that goes as well. And Monday, meeting with the CAO, and that's all I got at this moment in time.
Yeah, thank you. Looks like Thursday I have Mental Health Advisory Board. I did want to highlight, I did speak briefly last Thursday with Director Turner and Treasurer Tax Collector Sullivan. I know there was a speaker this morning asking about our cannabis equity program, and there is a deadline coming up this Thursday to apply, and after meeting with staff and absent any prior clear direction by this board, I had thought about bringing an item, but I chose not to submit a application for the next round. So at this point, my understanding is that program will not be continued except for the funds we already have in place. And I don't think I have anything else. Thank you.
So tomorrow, do have the LTA APC meeting, but I'm going to reach out to Lisa Davis because I may not make that meeting. I think I'm going to go to the Snows Mountain. I've been invited there too. I think I would like to go to that. If my plans change, I need to send somebody else on my side. I may, but I would really want to try and join that discussion on the expansion there and the community meeting that's happening in Woodland. I will kind of get that confirmed up after I talk with Lisa this afternoon. Thursday, have the South Deal Committee meeting, and then later on that evening, have the Math Board, and then Workforce Alliance in North Bay. I think there's a quick meeting on Friday morning, and then a strategic planning. I'm going to do the quick meeting. I'm not going to go to I went last year to the strategic planning meeting, but I think I'm just going to attend the meeting they're going to have quickly before. And I think I'll have to come up here to Lakeport to do that with one of the sites. So I'll be here, and I will try and confirm that with boy, I forget her name right now. Anyway, with the Workforce Alliance North Bay. And then Saturday is the Reefs Across America is happening. There's a lot of different events. There's an event at Middletown Cemetery. I should be attending in the morning, and then I'll be leaving town for a day. And then Monday, the RRA meeting here in Conference Room B. At least that's what I have on my agenda that's going to be here.
Okay. I have a very full week. Tomorrow morning, agenda review, and then I've got my NACO committee call. I'll be here for the holiday party with admin, then the NCO board meeting all afternoon. Thursday morning, I have Fire Safe Council. I'm going to go to the Build graduation, but I will, yeah, okay, that other thing got canceled. The bookmobile will be in Cobb. I'm going to have to miss the OPR quarterly check-in to make the AAA board meeting. Maybe I can catch the bookmobile in Kelseyville. There's an open house in Kelseyville, downtown, Oakmaker A&H. Maybe I can catch that on the way home. Friday morning, I'm going to go to Sacramento. The Wildfire Task Force meeting is in the morning, and the RCRC CSAC meeting is in the afternoon. And then Saturday, I'll be at Wreaths Across America in Kelseyville this year. And Monday, meeting with CIO Parker, RRA, and then after the RRA meeting is the Cobb Watershed Curriculum meeting. I don't know if you're interested in doing that. It's at Mandala Springs. The RRA meeting's in Cobb. That's the work that Siegler Springs Redevelopment Association's been doing with Big Valley on for people that curriculum for people that live along the creeks and restoring the watershed.
So the meeting's in Cobb, the Cobb area
The
water?
RRA meeting is at Cobb Area Water.
Okay.
And then just following that at Mandala Springs is the watershed. And if you don't want to go, maybe it's something that is, we were talking about the creeks earlier, a Monday evening at 5.
I have served.
Okay. So that's available. Okay, so we are going to take a little bit earlier of a lunch today so that we can be back here. We have a closed session item at 1 o'clock, 8.1, public employee appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1, interviews for public health director, appointment for public health director. And then we will come in, yes?
Madam Chair, if I may, just for clarification, it would be Health Services Director for the interview and appointment.
Health Services Director at 1.
Yes.
Yes. And then we will come back out for our 2:30 item and then probably go back into closed session for the other two.
Madam Chair, I think we can complete both the interviews and the evaluation prior to the 2:30
Okay.
because we will continue 8.2 to a future date.
Okay, so 8.2, conference with legal counsel, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. E1, one potential case will be continued to next week or at a later date. And 8.3, public employee evaluation, title Director of Child Support Services, will also be done in closed session likely before we come back for our 2:30 item. Okay, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you after lunch. Good
afternoon.
Hold on, just 1 second. We need to come out of closed session first.
Okay.
So we're coming back out of closed session. We had 2 items. Did we have any action taken out of closed session?
No action to be taken out of closed session.
Okay, wonderful. All right, thank you. So now we'll move on to our timed item today, 2:30 p.m. (6.9) Consideration of presentation and update of the California Department of Insurance Overview and Safer from Wildfires Framework. And we have Darius Siad. Is that how I say your last name?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you. So you came last May and did an initial presentation, and I know you've been going around the state to other counties and giving a similar presentation. So in last spring's chat, you said you were going to come back and bring us some updates and some more data that we were looking for. So I'll just turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I think, good afternoon. And, thank you for the opportunity and reaching out to us in a month. We don't have that big updates on Safer from Wildfire, little bit on that, few things on that, and also want to introduce you to our another as we have been meeting with many of you throughout the state, as you said. So it is clear that all of us, that California is at an insurance crossroad. Next slide, please.
Oh, we're going to get it up.
That's okay.
Great.
Could we do the next slide? Yes. So natural disasters and global inflation are creating stress on insurance market. We all know that. This is not just happening here. Every state is experiencing this, these factors. Increased cost for rebuilding, labor shortages, insurance for insurance companies is harder to find and costlier, and at-risk increases. Insurance companies are protecting their obligations to current consumers and limiting new business. Next slide, please. So the property insurance market is changing quickly. Also changing quickly. Even though many insurance companies are currently still selling homeowners insurance, 12 insurance companies control 85% of the California insurance market. So since 2022, 7 of the top 12 insurance groups have paused or restricted new business despite rate increases approved or pending with the Department of Insurance. So clearly, this is a problem. It is complex, global in nature, and affecting us here at home. Next slide, please. I really want you to look at this slide carefully because the slide shows you that 7 out of these 12 insurance companies have either paused or restricted their new policies, even though most have pending or approved rate increases, showing that the problem cannot be solved just by increasing prices. Next slide, please. So over the past 10 years, insurance companies have done far worse in California than nationally by any measure. And you can see that, direct incurred loss ratio countrywide in California, direct underwriting profit countrywide in California, and direct return on net worth. If you go in the end, you see that part. And this data is from NAIC. So during those years, California experienced 9 out of 10 most devastating wildfires in our state's history. So as a result, we are faced with a tough question: can consumers get insurance they need? And honestly, today the answer is generally no. Because climate change impacts are accelerating, we need to take action that expand insurance availability. So how did we get there? Next slide, please. Since 2019, we have been consistently monitoring and analyzing the status and direction of insurance availability trends. The FAIR Plan has doubled to 3% of the market, becoming the insurer of the first resort for many Californians, not the last resort, as it was designed to. You all probably aware of it, that the California Fair Plan Association was established to meet the needs of California homeowners unable to find insurance in the traditional marketplace. The Fair Plan is not a state agency, nor it is a public entity. There is no public or taxpayer funding that goes into a Fair Plan. The Fair Plan is a syndicated fire insurance pool comprised of all insurers licensed to conduct property casualty business in California. So the Fair Plan was established by statute in August 1968 as an insurance placement facility. All licensed property casualty insurance, which write basic property insurance, like I said, are members of the Care Plan. And the Fair Plan issues policies on behalf of its member companies. Each member company participates in the profits, losses, and expenses of the plan in direct proportion to its market share of business written in the state. So a growing Fair Plan is a problem because Fair Plan policyholders are required to pay more for less coverage. And concentrating the highest risk properties under the FAIR Plan increases the chance that it will be unable to afford a catastrophic disaster. So it's really important to understand at this point that if FAIR Plan goes insolvent, insurance companies are on the hook for the unpaid FAIR Plan losses. While this hasn't happened in nearly 30 years, the uncertainty is still driving insurance companies to further limit coverage to at-risk Californians. So as a direct result of growing risk concentration in California, the credit rate agency AM Best has downgraded outlooks for top 12 companies like State Farm, AAA, and Mercury. And there is a critical fact to know, unlike public utilities, because sometimes people compare insurance with public utilities, but unlike public utilities, which are required to provide coverage to all residents and businesses, under Prop 103, insurance companies can legally refuse to write insurance unless they are able to meet 100% of consumers' complaints, cover their expenses, and earn a fair return. You know, everyone is harmed if an insurance company goes insolvent because it cannot pay its claim, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So next slide, please. So to reduce the risk of major losses in the industry, the Department of Insurance, as I have, talked about it in my previous presentation a month ago, that it is a three-step process system to protect your home. Surroundings, community, which in turn provides consumers with discounts and transparency about the risk rating. So this is, next slide, please. So this is protecting home or businesses, and we already have been, I've talked about it, but I'll just go really fast on it. Class A fire-rated roof, enclosed eaves, fire-resistant vents, multi-pane windows, and a minimum of 6 non-combustible vertical clearance at the bottom of the exterior surface of the structure. Next slide, please. And that's step 2 is immediate surroundings. Protect the immediate surroundings, clearing of the vegetation and debris under the deck, clearing of vegetation, debris, mulch, stored combustible materials, and any and all movable combustible material from within 5 feet of the building being evaluated. Incorporation of only non-combustible materials into the portion of any improvements to the property of BBE, which is situated within 5 feet, and removal of combustible structures, sheds, and other outbuildings from the immediate surroundings of the home. And then it comes to our third slide. Next slide, please. Our third step, which is to obtain a community level mitigation designation. This will most probably likely to involve at least one, if not more. Local government agencies, community level mitigation designations include FRRC by the Board of Forestry and a Firewise USA site in good standing. So the Firewise program is a nationwide program created by National Fire Protection Association, and I'm proud to say that we have more than 700 Firewise USA with more forming. And it is an important part of California efforts to ensure communities are prepared against wildfire. Next slide, please. So the FAIR Plan began, and this is an update from last time. The FAIR Plan began offering insurance discount starting August 23rd. And CDI expects to have other companies, approved by the end of the year, which is coming up. So we are hoping for that. And the FAIR Plan has offered a 10% discount on policies in the participating Firewise communities since May 2018. And remind you, FAIR Plan is not under those Prop 103, but they are still doing that, and that's credit goes to them. So now the FAIR Plan is offering 2 more discounts, okay, which were approved, which we said that, starting August 23rd. One for protecting the structure and another one for protecting the immediate surroundings of the dwelling. So when applied, these discounts will reduce the wildfire portion of the policy premium by 10% and 5% respectively. And depending on your level of wildfire risk, this can be a large component of your overall premium. So we do advise you to contact your broker to find out what this means for your premium, how to qualify, and when you could receive a discount. So we have received several concerns earlier this month, from several insurance agents over the past few days that it seems that they are having difficulties with the Fair Plan new website and policies that taking longer than usual 5 to 10 days. So the department is aware of the program and is addressing it with the Fair Plan. At this time, we do not have any further information on it, but we are aware of the issue and will update you once we get that. If you go on the Fair Plan website, they also have increased the call volume. And because of the call volume, they have also temporarily extended their customer service hours from Monday through Friday to Saturday also. So I want you to know that part. And then additionally, another update is CDI and the Fair Plan reached an agreement to increase the commercial coverage limit to 20 million per location. So it has been effective since November 1st. So this addressed the greater needs of recreational youth camps, homeowners association, wineries, and agriculture groups for additional coverage. And the business owner policy, which we call it BOP, limit increases to 20 million. And this is to take effect no later than December 14, that is 2 days from today. So another thing I would like to discuss is that most people do not know that insurance companies assign a risk score to your home, So it is important to get the risk score, because if you know about your risk score, you can take action accordingly. So there was a question submitted by Johanna about what is the average insurance that a homeowners pay in the Lake County. So basically, currently we don't have that information because there are so many factors that the insurance company look into it. Right now, currently insurance receive information on risk from private companies, and 2 of them are Fireline Score and CoreLogic. The 3 main factors that are considered are fuel, slope, and excess that goes into wildfire risk scores. Other factors may be considered, but those are 3 main factors. Currently, there is not a process by which a community can directly contact the risk modeling company to inform them that what they have done or not. But individual property owners may submit this information to their insurers. So the regulation, as I've talked about this before also, it requires insurance company to give you the wildfire score for your property. They have to tell you how they created the score, what factors went into this score. So the wildfire risk or classification must provide to you at the following times: when you apply for a new policy, within 15 days; before you renew a policy, at least 45 days; before you are non-renewed, at least 75 days; and when you complete mitigation on your property and request a revised score within 30 days. So by creating the right of appeal, the regulation is giving power to the consumer. And if you're not satisfied and you have, done all that you need to do, please contact the department and we will help you in any way possible. Next slide, please. It's important to understand that we are not starting from scratch, because these actions build on changes the department has made since 2019, moving in the direction of more modern and resilient market. We have moved forward on wildfire actions and are responding to climate change like never before. We are providing the department, we are proud the department is leading the way for our state and our nation. Next slide, please. So California's sustainable insurance strategy is a comprehensive plan to modernize our insurance market with 3 interlocking goals. 1, making insurance available to Californians, creating a resilient insurance market, and then protecting consumers from climate change. Next slide, please. So here are the executive actions, and reforms we are talking about. 1, we will increase availability of insurance in wildfire distressed area. So using a prior approval rate authority, insurance company will write no less than 85% of homes and business in wildfire distressed area. This is a historic agreement between department and insurance companies. We will reverse the trend of a growing Fair Plan and closing the insurance gap. The department will define these distressed areas using a data-driven approach. The second important part of this plan is we will return fair plan policy holders, like our plan is, back to traditional insurance. Because with first priority given to hardened homes and business of following the safer from wildfire. So that will be the priority. The next important element of the plan directly addresses the climate crisis. The commissioner will introduce regulation to utilize forward-looking catastrophic model, prioritizing wildfire safety, mitigation, and transparency. So effectively addressing climate change requires new risk assessment strategies that keep insurance available. So forward-looking model must recognize the clear benefits of investments our governor and legislature are making in wildfire safety, including home hardening, fuel reduction, and prescribed fires. We have a clear template for how to do this now because of our experience with safer from wildfires regulation requiring insurance discount and increased transparency on wildfire risk scores. So we will take input from public and put the public's interest in safety and insurance access first, as we did in the process. So another important element that is there is stabilizing our market in the face of climate change. So you probably, some of you are aware of it, that we want to explore allowing California only reinsurance costs. Reinsurance is a tool that many insurance companies are using to manage their climate risk and continue writing policies. We want to underscore that Californians will not pay the cost of hurricanes, fires, and flood across the nation and around the world. Under this agreement, companies wishing to use these new risk assessment tools must agree to increase and maintain their writing in the wildfire distress area of our state. Which meaning that's 85% required. We just talked about increasing writing and removing people from the FAIR plan. So now turning to FAIR plan, we have talked about it. We will continue modernizing the FAIR plan by expanding commercial coverage limits to 20 million per structure. So this closes kind of coverage gaps from HOA, affordable housing, and agribusiness, which also have been having a hard time finding coverage. Next slide, please. So our sustainable insurance strategy is very new. Okay, it just came out. Is the result of meeting with California homeowners, business owners, fire chiefs, agents, realtors, homeowners associations, summer camps, farmers, rancher, and many other consumers across the state. We have held meeting in all 58 counties since 2019, making sure we are taking everyone into account. This issue of insurance availability is imperative for everyone, and we will do our part to improve the market. Before moving to the next slide, I also want to address a few questions that was sent to me earlier. What is the most up-to-date data on non-renewals? So our latest data available on our website is from 2021. Unfortunately, the 2022 data is not available until early next year, okay? And then what percentage of homeowners are on the FAIR plan in Lake County? We have the data again from 2021, and I'm going to put either I'm going to send the link to Johanna, or I'm going to put the link into our chat group that you can go on our website and see that. But this data is, remind you, from 2021 because we don't have a data from 2022. And then there was a question about average cost to insure a home within the county outside of the cities. We don't have an answer to that, for there are so many variables that goes into that. Sometimes even the homes just next to it will have a different system of calculating the cost. So I just want to say that, and I will request for next slide, which is actually opening up the questions.
Okay, thank you.
I tried to go fast because I know I'm giving an update and I don't want to take too much time of yours, all of yours.
Oh, no, wonderful. yeah, I guess we'll be looking forward next year to that data that we were hoping to get. So what is the plan to remove the 85% of the policyholders from the FAIR plan back into the market? And how long is that supposed to take?
So this is so new to us because it was just introduced in September. So right now there is so many things that will go into that. The whole idea is that if we do that 85%, give they're writing in the distress area, that will help them in getting the incentive that they can use the risk modeling moving forward. So what that means is basically that when we get to that point, when 85% minimum threshold takes effect and insurance reaching that 85% minimum threshold would then be permitted to use CAT modeling to project losses and include some portion of the reinsurance in rating. So that's the whole idea, that if the insurance does not reach the 85% minimum threshold, then no allowance for the use of CAT modeling, which ensures, to project losses, and no allowances to include some portion of reinsurance costs, because reinsurance is a bigger thing that, insurance companies are struggling. So that's one of the things. This is so new that, by the end of next year, we are hoping, like we went from Safer from Wildfire. They were approved in October 2022, and we are approving, we have approved FAIR plan, but we are approving other right now. So just taking time. But I'm excited that I'm introducing it right now. So then it is easier for everybody to take in and then know what's happening. So we keep on updating you as we move forward.
Okay, so maybe you don't know the answer to this yet, but as this is happening, as we're transitioning the 85% off the FAIR and into the market, are they going to conceivably have more of a choice, or is there going to be a single provider, or potentially could they be paying more? Do you have any idea on what that part looks like?
No, and I don't even have any idea on saying that this 85% thing will be happening soon. It's still in the process of regulations and achieving that, and then going through all the process and stuff. It's just a proposal that, on Governor Newsom's, request, and everybody looking into that. So it's just, we are just talking about it and looking into all the things, but we don't know how it will look like. It will be single insurance, we have no answers for that.
Okay. And so anybody should, when they get their premium in the mail, or if they're going on FAIR plan, they should ask for their wildfire risk score? Is that anybody should do that and understand what the risks are and what they could do? And then can you walk through that process again, just so that we can be really clear on what that process looks like?
So people can already ask for their risk scores, What Safer from Wildfire will do is, once FAIR plan approved it, that will give them why did they get this risk score, so they can, if they feel it's not fair, they can appeal that. So that's how it is. So once, remember the 4 things that I gave you: renew the policy, or you have done the update and you're submitting that, all that, when you do that part, at that time you can ask for, or you can ask before, and accordingly you can do the home hardening to your home.
Okay. One of the things that I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around, and I asked this question during the presentation at CSAC too, is we have communities that are completely rebuilt to pretty much the latest standards, maybe the 2019, maybe 2020 building codes. So the homes are hardened, the community is hardened, and as long as everyone is managing the landscape, we don't have the forest that we used to have. Then those are all the things that we're supposed to be doing, and we've done them just by the nature of having to rebuild an entire community, then, why do we have so many people on the FAIR plan? And why are the rates so high? So I've asked this question a bunch of times, or I've shared this frustration a bunch of times, and I I don't get a lot of really good answers, but I'm just going to bring it up to you one more time.
And you know why there are not of really good answers? Because there is no good answer to that. Okay, so Department of Insurance, we can do, once insurance companies are selling, we can regulate them. But in Department of Insurance, if you look at our CDI overview, we cannot push or force anybody to sell any insurance to anybody. So it is, like I said, today's presentation, I really wanted to come or also share that, look at the risk they are taking. So we are here all together. It's not that insurance companies are also in a pickle right now. So they are evaluating their risk and all that part, and that's what it is. But we cannot make them sell insurance to certain communities, certain people or anything. We don't have the power. But once they are doing it, we can regulate them.
Yeah, and that is, the answer that I typically get back is that the insurance companies, well, inflation is what's really causing a lot of these premiums to go up because replacement costs are so high. And
replacement costs, inflation. Also, don't forget the risk that is involved now. It is because of the wildfires and stuff. So, and we hear this a lot. Like there will be and it's so heart-wrenching. A person will get with the same everything will get the insurance, and opposite home, which is rebuilt in the area where there was a fire and stuff, and they are not getting the insurance, but our hands are so tied. Like I said, we are not public utilities, so they have to make sure that they are making a decent profit. It's a profit industry. They're making a decent profit, their risk is okay, and they're solvent. So few things that they look at it, which they don't feel profitable, so that's why.
Okay. Supervisor Spatier?
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for coming back for further updates. I'm going to follow up with some of the questions that were already asked. With this risk assessment, is there, I think I got the answer, but is there any type of enforcement to say, here's the risk assessment, you're obviously not valuating the risk in the same way that the state is looking at the risk? What's the value of the risk assessment if all it's going to tell me is what I can do to feel good about keeping my house safe, but not actually enforce a decrease or a fair pricing from an insurance company? What is the true purpose of the risk assessment other than simply knowing my risk and what I can do to feel good about the safety of my home?
No. I think what it provides you, like we said, the transparency, and we give you the right of appeal when you appeal the risk score, and accordingly, what is your risk, and accordingly, you will, your premium or things should change. Department of Insurance is there. Like if you go on I send Johanna a list of few FAQs of safer from wildfires and the discount, and accordingly, if you see what time frame is that where you can require your risk score and stuff, if you feel it's not fair, then Department of Insurance, please call us or contact us, and we'll work through it, that how it is going and stuff. So.
And I know that this is not a California issue. This is a nationwide issue. Oftentimes, we'll talk to our state representatives, and they'll point to Florida to show that some similar situations are occurring there with insurance companies. I guess I'm just going to stand on my soapbox for just a split second. The idea of home ownership is a absolute critical pathway to help people get out of financial restrictions in their lives. And when you purchase a house and you're trying to get out of financial restrictions, you're probably not going to pay cash for your house. You're probably going to get a mortgage. And upon getting a mortgage, you're forced to get insurance. And not to say that those who pay cash shouldn't get insurance, but that's a choice at that point that they have to deal with. But when you are starting at a lower level of financial status, you're going to get a mortgage, you're forced to get insurance, which is now pushing people away from home ownership, which pushes away from people from financial freedom that house ownership is known to provide as an achievement for those folks. There's a lot of talk about equity and in trying to rebalance the scale of society to ensure that everyone has the same access and the same opportunities. And I see this as being an absolute weight on the wrong side of the scale of what California has been trying to do. And I hope that we can find a better way, because this is not a sustainable way for us to keep going. As my colleague stated, we have areas that are completely cleared, completely safe, and yet unable, without looking at the cost doubling, tripling, or just not even being eligible to obtain insurance. And on top of that, especially in a community with a lot of elderly folks who are on fixed income and going on their pensions or going on their Social Security, that huge increase and that value of home ownership when you are a senior citizen and trying to live out the rest of your years, you would expect to have a little bit more stability, but this creates an absolute huge instability in those lives and has a huge impact on our community. So I just at least wanted you to hear it. I'm sure it's not the first time you hear it, but we have to figure out something. This is just not a sustainable thing.
And I think that's what actually was the catalyst with this SIS, that came out, our sustainable insurance strategy. And it will just be like we will, it's one of the things that we will try to work with it. But I totally hear you. And it is heart-wrenching for me and very sad for us as employees also when we go out, and there are some times that we cannot do anything, and homeowners has become such a hardship on people, and especially our elderly and fixed income. I totally think that this is something we take. I don't think there is any presentation where we don't take this, and one of the things that is on Commissioner's, one of the things that he needs to work on, and he wants to work on this one.
Supervisor Green.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation and the update. Do appreciate it. Just trying to refresh my memory from the last presentation. So Safer from Wildfires, I believe, envisions basically a new matrix of insurers that would be willing to consider fire hardening and other risk reduction procedures, and on that basis, on their understanding of a specific property, maybe offer discounts based on that home hardening, or even be willing to write new policies with or without a discount. But last time you presented, I think I checked, and there were no insurance companies signed up to provide Safer from Wildfire policies serving Lake County. So I guess my question is, has the insurance, have any insurance companies suddenly come to light and said, oh, absolutely, we want to participate in the Safer from Wildfire program? Because I think what I'm hearing my colleagues say is there is no advantage to home hardening if there's no insurance companies that I can reach out to and actually negotiate some discounts or even negotiate new coverage. So has anything changed since the last update? Are there any Safer from Wildfire registered companies that are offering that type of discount in Lake County or in the state as a whole?
So I think maybe I did not present it in a simpler way that I should have. Last October 2022, the regulations were passed. By April this year, the insurance companies, they have submitted their rate plans and insurance fair plan. So fair plan was approved on August 23rd. They were already giving fire-wise discount before, since few years. Now they have added 2 more discounts, home, surrounding and, your surrounding and your home. So those are the 2 discounts that added. So now fair plan is offering. The other insurance companies are absolutely right. They are not doing it because they have submitted their plan and it's in the process of approval. So we are thinking by early next year, you will see some insurance companies, if they are willing to write in that area after that. So they have already submitted that, what discounts they will be doing. Each company will be doing it a little bit differently within the parameters of the regulation, but the companies have filed their rate filing. So we are hoping that we'll have something next year on that.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Did you have something?
And similar to that, Safer from Fire it started then, and now we are getting all the approval and things. Similar to this, SIS it's in the process now. It's starting the process, life cycle. So we are just going to update you as we move forward. I do want to, and I did not address Supervisor before, that I do want to say that if in doubt, first of all, my email is there, and I will try to get the answer if I have the answer from our team. We have 1,400 people working at the Department of Insurance, and lots of our experts in their own area, and we can get the answer. But also Department of Insurance, our hotline is there, and our callback time is 2 minutes. So for individual insurance things, I will encourage your constituents to call the department directly with their own policy and stuff.
Supervisor Spatier?
Yeah, just a quick question. I see this as being a larger issue in rural areas than urban areas. Do you have the percentage of who is on the FAIR plan when it comes to rural, suburban, and urban?
I don't have it, but I can check on that part, but I think that will be more of a thing for FAIR plan. All the data that we have, like I said, it's from 2021. We don't have that data, but I can look into that. If you can send this, to Johanna, and I can try to figure it out if we have it. I don't think we do, but I can look into that.
When did you say the 2022 data would be available?
Next year.
Early next year, late next year?
Yeah. Early next. We are thinking early next year.
Okay.
And just to speak to my colleagues here, I know there was a program that RCRC was trying to work on as far as the SGIP program, where RCRC would front money to low-income folks and then get reimbursed by the state for the money that they had set aside for SGIP, because we were seeing that people with money who can purchase batteries for $10,000 or more were the only ones able to access this program, not those who are low income. So we saw SGIP program really facilitate assistance to those of affluence rather than those of the low income. I'd love to see something similar here, because home hardening, you get a discount after you spend the money. I believe that's still the case, not you get money up front to help you pay for those home hardenings, which leaves low-income folks unable to even afford to start the process to home harden. I'd love to see if there's a similar program that can be created for home hardening, so that we can help those that really do not have the opportunities or access to do those things.
Well, that's what the pilot program is. I mean, that's what they're developing, or we're developing that here with Kelseyville Riviera. And it's the pilot is 3 years and it's just starting. So there's not something faster that I'm aware of.
No, it's not. And then also when people are forming Firewise communities and stuff, I know there is a component of the insurance discount that's there, but home hardening has also made, Firewise communities has also made as a community come together, and Firewise community gets grants and all that part to help people home harden also. So I think that will be one of the things that probably you are developing for plan. Also, when people have that Firewise status, we will be very happy to write a letter of recommendation or any guide you in that regard, to help you get the grants, to help home harden in your areas and stuff. So we are here for those recommendation letter also if you need some.
I think we're getting close to getting our 20th Firewise community in the county. So
honestly, that's exciting for me, because I think we have 700 right now, which is really good, and it also had bring community together in certain ways where elderlies were not communicating and stuff, and they now know somebody in the community cared for them. So strengthening Firewise is basically a win-win situation, we feel.
Yeah. I mean, this is difficult because of the experience that we've all been through with fires. our community goes above and beyond to do everything that is asked of them, and we're still in this situation. So that's where our frustration lies, is you say to do all of these things, we do them, we have the Firewise, we're still in this place where most people are on the FAIR plan and are priced out of really what they can comfortably afford. So it's impacting so many of our community members.
I totally understand that, and I'm hoping this, I do think that if you reach out to your insurance agent for Fair Plan, Fair Plan agent, then with this new two, discounts, maybe that will help little bit, in that situation, depending where you are. We're trying to work hard at the department to do whatever we can, but it's a sticky situation.
Okay. Vice Chair Simon.
Yeah, Moak Simon, District 1 Supervisor. Appreciate your time to be here for the update, but, I think I just have one simple question. Do you know anywhere in California under the FAIR Plan or anywhere else, obviously Lake County being the number one focus, all I hear about is cancellations, increasing on, your monthly premiums or anything. I ain't never heard of anybody since August or any other time that anyone has gotten a discount from an insurance company or the FAIR Plan. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes.
How many? How many? If you say yes, don't just say yes because you want to say yes. Do you got a number?
I don't have a number, but
So then it's just a yes,
No.
I think you guys got to be able to advertise that, because what we get here with boots on the ground, us as supervisors, and, a community that's gone through it over and over, is those numbers. So, I think if we're going to show up to a Board of Supervisors meeting, you have that number if you're going to say yes, because I haven't heard it. All I get is, I got my cancellation notice, or it tripled, or we get the constant emails. And I appreciate your time here, and I got one more question that'll probably be controversial, and whether or not you can answer it, is if the California State Insurance Commissioner, does he have home insurance and wildfire risk?
Can you say it again? I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
Does the insurance commissioner, does he have home wildfire risk and insurance for his home?
I'm not privy to that.
I would bet it's a yes. But it's just frustrating, and I know I appreciate your time today, but I haven't heard about it here in Lake County, and I know a lot of people have done a lot of hard work, and we got a long ways to go. But I would appreciate it from you, as you said, you'd like to communicate with the board, the first one in Lake County. And unless I'll ask any of my other supervisors if you've heard anything in a positive manner.
So Supervisor, I'm going to interrupt you right now because you interrupted me twice on this part, and I want to address this part. Yes, I don't have the numbers, but when I said yes, I meant yes, because we do receive a lot of...
I just appreciate you following that up with some facts, like numbers.
That's okay. Next time we might, this is a very good suggestion, and we will take that into account, but we do get those emails where people were able to get the discount. So I want to say that part, just because I don't have the number, I'm not just saying yes to say yes. And the thing about Commissioner having or not, I'm not privy to that. And you put the word there that it means yes, it doesn't. I don't know that. So I want to clear that up before we move forward. Yes, go ahead.
People do get discounts. If you're in a Firewise neighborhood, you get a discount. It's very tiny. If you have a 3% discount, or even, I don't even know anybody that gets up to 5% off a $7,000 premium. It doesn't help a whole lot. So there are some very tiny
I haven't heard any of that in any of the discussions I've had with anybody about the insurance, so I appreciate that. If that's happening,
it's happening.
I'd like to see those numbers, because I haven't heard that from any of my constituents or anyone else.
Well, we have so many, in District 5, there are so many Firewise neighborhoods. Several of the HOAs there's several in the Cobb area. There's one forming in the Kelseyville area, and people are constantly trying to get the certification or the certificate that they can show their insurer. But I'm not sure that it's been happening for the FAIR Plan yet.
Okay.
Okay, and I want you to, Fair Plan approved August 23rd. From there, they are offering, so we do want people to connect with them. I do agree with you that it's discounts, when even they're getting discounts, it's not the substantial, it's not something that we like to do. It's, so I do agree with that.
Yeah, it's tiny.
Yes, I agree with that part, but it is there.
Okay, Supervisor Green?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up question on Safer from Wildfire, and some plans have been submitted for review. I guess, glass half full, if we had some indication at this point that there was some traction with that, and that we had a large number of insurers at least interested in kicking the tires on that, that may be helpful, because what we saw in the slides here was basically the contraction of the insurance market, and definitely a lot of effort that the insurance department has put forth in Safer from Wildfire. And I don't want to put you on the spot with this if you don't have the number, but can you tell us how many insurers have expressed interest in Safer from Wildfire? How many have actually submitted plans that they intend to participate in Safer from Wildfire and issue new policies under that program?
So basically on our website, there is a place where you can see who has submitted the rate filings and stuff. But I'm also hoping it's end of this year that even if I don't come to present, I'm hoping that early next year I'm able to provide you the numbers, how many did and how many we approved. And I think I'm also I'm appreciative of all the questions. And I'm also taking that I want to come up with more numbers and look into that when I, come to you guys again, so that that there is a part that you feel that it's moving forward. So thank you so much for that. But right now, I don't know on top, but I know there are lots of companies but lot doesn't do anything to. I want to wait on that and send you that information by early in next year.
I appreciate that, if only because for our own curiosity, when we hear on one side State Farm's pulling out, riding through, we could take some comfort if we knew State Farm, for example, had an application pending under Safer from Wildfires, that they're on board with this new paradigm that you're trying to get. On the other hand, if we see a total absence of those large insurers and maybe some looky-loos, kicking the tires on this, that would inspire a little bit less confidence. So I look forward to that future presentation and understanding how this future market you intend to mature is actually maturing, or if there's challenges still on that.
Thank you so much. And totally, we want to do the same thing because Safer from Wildfire was one of the things that was put out, and we are just moving along with it right now. Definitely, we want to have those numbers, and we want to exactly what you said, that we want to see where we can improve and how we can move this forward. Because communities are investing their time into it. Homeowners are working hard into it. So if they are not rewarded by that is very discouraging.
Yep, it's discouraging. Okay, I'm going to open it up for the public. Do we have anyone in the chambers that wishes to come up? Anyone in the Zoom room? Okay, then I'll close public input and see if there's any final comments. Supervisor Sabatier?
Again, I appreciate the conversation and dealing with our frustration, but it is difficult because we're only talking about having insurance, let alone having insurance, going through a fire, and trying to obtain the funding to be able to rebuild from those insurance. That's a whole different game to play after the fact. This is simply to have this almost thin veil of safety that we feel that we can have by having insurance, but I've heard too many stories of insurance, the length of time it takes, the number of hours, the full-time job it takes to be able to combat and get what you actually deserve in order to rebuild your lives. We haven't had that conversation today, nor will we, but it's just the whole insurance status of how it affects us is huge.
Couldn't agree with you more on that, because it is. And we'll continue our work on it, and we'll continue to update you on that. And we will continue to take suggestions from all of you and take it back and make it better as much as we can. Thank you so much for having, and happy holidays to all of you.
Yes, and thank you for coming back. And will we look forward to seeing you again in about 6 months?
Definitely. And also, if any questions that come up and that were not answered in the way, feel free to send me. And, last time also when we did, I will come back and I will get the answers, whatever answer, however we can answer your, we will do our best to give you whatever knowledge we have on those things.
Okay. Well, thank you. And maybe next time we'll have a little bit more to report out on and be able to hear more about some progress being made. Hopefully we'll be able to see the 2022 data and understand how this 85% migration off FAIR plan is actually going to work out for our residents.
Definitely. 85% will take a longer time, but how many companies have filed, where we are, how we are headed, definitely would love to come back and, do that. But I do also want you all to also know that it's not only Department of Insurance. We are all here together with homeowners and Department of Insurance and Firewise and insurance companies as well, what they are taking as loss and stuff too. So yeah, I will do that. And I will also appreciate when I come next time if I can get little bit more questions before, so I can put it in my TP so my presentation is more valuable to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's the end of our agenda. And we are going to adjourn our meeting. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.